待て。やめ。
Once upon a time, there were news and rumors about the existence of the fourth progenitor, the most powerful and dangerous type of vampire, and everyone was gathering enough information about them to recognize them when they saw them. In the meantime, a vampire named Koju was walking through the streets at night and passed by a girl and her boyfriend. When she tripped and fell to the ground, he turned towards her, and after seeing certain parts of her body, he had the desire to attack her and drink her blood, but he restrained himself until the last moment, and after vomiting some blood, he decided to continue on his way and ignore his instincts. Kojo, one of the vampires of the fourth ancestor, is also a lazy, failed student who spends most of his time studying for makeup exams during summer vacation with his friend Motoki, who always lends him money. While complaining about having to take makeup tests during vacation, Motoki scolds him for missing classes and tests during school and tells him that the teacher knows he's in no condition to take a test early in the morning. Their friend Asaji joined them and made fun of the fact that he was a vampire who couldn't show up in the morning, so he made a face and pretended to be a normal person. After some time, his friends decided to leave due to their busy schedules, and he ended up sitting alone to review his lessons. Koju leaves the restaurant and finds that he doesn't have enough money to take the train and can't afford lunch tomorrow.
Let's go gambling!
He complains about the temperature, wearing mainly winter clothes, and as he walks, he feels as if he's being followed. A mysterious girl kept following him wherever he went until he decided to hide in the toy section of the mall. When he saw the girl following him, he thought she was wearing school clothes and thought she was one of his classmates, so he had no choice but to come face to face with her. When he did so, he was surprised that she recognized his real identity and said loudly that he was from the fourth ancestor, but no one paid attention to her, so he foolishly pretended to be someone else and started speaking Italian.
What the dog doing?
And when he was about to leave, she grabbed the end of his shirt and told him that he was the person she was looking for, but he denied it and told her after he left the mall, he found that the girl was being harassed by two equally foolish young men. When he took a closer look at them, he realized that they belonged to the satanic order through the bracelets they wore on their hands. He decided to help her after they went too far, but he was surprised at how strong she was, as she was able to beat them alone and force them to show their true form as vampires.
Don't come to my house or else I'll suck your blood. I'll suck your blood.
Meanwhile, the authorities were able to detect the unnatural strength of one of them and asked those in the area to evacuate immediately. When the vampire summoned his demon in the form of a horse, she summoned her spirit to confront him, and although he mocked her and attacked her, he was shocked when she succeeded in defeating his demon. Kojo intervened and blocked her blow with his hand, then ordered the vampire to take his friend and leave, never to be exposed to teenage girls again. The girl then asked him why he intervened in the fight, and he told her that anyone who sees a fight in front of him will want to stop it. She said that no normal person could stop an attack with their bare hands, and told him that vampires using demon vampires and magical power in public was a clear violation of the sacred treaty. He told her that she was the one who struck first, and that it made no sense for her to want to spill someone's blood because he saw her panties, and that's when the wind blew again and her skirt blew off, causing her panties to show again, and she pointed her spear at Kojo because he saw her panties again. He said it was out of his control because of where she was standing and the direction of the wind, so she backed off and left quietly. He decided to move away from the area as well before the police came, but he noticed that she had dropped her wallet with her ID card and found out that her name was Yukina. The next day, Kojo went to school to ask where Yukina's class was, but the supervisor told him that she didn't come today, so he tried to search her wallet for any contact information, and then he smelled a smell that made him remember the shape of her panties.
But what the hell, what?
So he tried to control himself and curb his instincts. Then he was surprised when Yukina appeared out of nowhere behind him and called him a pervert because he smelled the smell of her wallet. Then she asked him why he came to a middle school building, and he told her that he came to return her wallet. And when she approached him to take it, he refused to give it to her until she answered his questions. Then he asked her why she followed him yesterday, but she refused to answer and decided to retrieve her wallet by force. As she took out her spear, Kojo heard her belly chirping clearly, which made her feel very embarrassed. He realized that she was hungry and probably hadn't eaten anything since yesterday because her wallet was lost, so he decided to give it to her and asked her for lunch as a reward for returning the wallet. He was surprised to find that she was the type of person who preferred to go to a fast food restaurant and liked to eat burgers.
Here, kitty.
You can has cheeseburger.
She told him that she used to eat burgers when she was in the high divine forest cities, where she studied at one of the Lion King organization schools, and was surprised that Kojo had never heard of this organization before. She told him that it was a secret service organization created to prevent magical disasters, and that she was a fortune teller sent to Itogami Island to watch him. Kojo was surprised that the organization sent someone specifically to watch him, so she told him that the power of the ancestors is equal to the military forces of an entire country, and his presence posed a serious threat. Yukina asked him if he was deliberately hiding his identity and hiding on the island for some reason, and he told her that he lived on the island before he became a vampire. Yukina was surprised that he was originally human and realized that he gained immortality by becoming a vampire and an ancestor. When she asked him about the details, he said that he couldn't explain them at the moment, but that someone had imposed this condition on him. Curious as to why the fourth ancestor chose him as an heir and how he met one for the first time, he remembered in the past when he met a girl in the midst of flames of fire around her, but he couldn't help himself and started experiencing symptoms and told Yukina that this usually happens to him when he tries to remember anything about his past. She approached him and started wiping his pants when they got dirty from the spilled drink and told him that the organization ordered her to get rid of him in case he posed a danger to the islanders, then surprised her intention to go everywhere with him and watch him all day. He realized that he was in trouble for becoming a fourth ancestor and would be under constant siege by a girl who had the power to kill him at any moment, and then he remembered a flashback to his past when he was facing Aurora, who caused havoc. When he shot an arrow from his bow, she told him that she had done her duty and now it was his turn. Then she went inside him and vanished as if she had never existed, and he sat screaming and crying alone after losing her. The next day, Kojo left his house to go to school to take his last remedial test, but he panicked when he found Yukina waiting for him outside and wondered that she had spent the whole night outside to watch him, but she told him that she was waiting for her things to arrive at her new place. He realized that she had rented a room next to him so that she could watch him all the time and not lose sight of her for a moment. When he entered her room, he found that she had no furniture or even a bed to sleep on, so she told him that she was living in a student dormitory, so she didn't have many things. Kojo thought that she might want to go shopping to buy some necessary items, but she couldn't because she was watching him, so he offered to go shopping together after he finished his exams, and as he handed the test paper to his teacher named Natsuki, who is one of the few people who know the fact that he is a fourth ancestor, she told him that he passed the test and passed the subject. Then she asked him in an accusatory tone about the person who summoned a demon in the shopping mall yesterday, thinking it was him. Before he answered, she asked him not to act stupidly so as not to get caught. When she was about to leave, he asked her if she had any information about the Lion King organization. She was surprised that he knew of the existence of such an organization and pulled him by the ear like a small child and asked him where he got this information. He claimed to have overheard the name somewhere. She told him that it is considered a rival organization as an offensive witch who serves Japan and his enemies as a fourth ancestor, and advised him to avoid going anywhere near the members of the organization. After that, Kojo wandered around the mall with Yukina, feeling frustrated that there was no escape, while Yukina enjoyed her time exploring her surroundings and couldn't stop thinking about using the goods as weapons. After they finished shopping, Asaji happens to see him and Yukina on their way home through the train window and wonders if he has met a new girl. While waiting for the elevator, they meet Nagiza, Kojo's younger sister, who looks similar to Yukina with very few differences. Kojo is surprised that they already know each other. His sister tells him that they met at school yesterday and became friends, and when she found out that she was moving in next door, she went to the market and bought a lot of things and plans to throw a welcome party for her. Kojo welcomes the idea and invites Yukina to have dinner with them at home tonight. While Nagisa is preparing the food, Kojo tells her that she gets talkative with the people she loves and feels pathetic for helping him with his homework even though she's younger than him. Yukina noticed his picture with the basketball team and he told her that he quit the game before he became a vampire even though he was doing well, but he got cocky because he thought he could do everything by himself and win the game by himself and ended up alone on the team. He then told her about his intention to use his power as a fourth ancestor to help solve some of the world's problems, such as eliminating criminals and corrupt politicians, but he realizes that it's impossible for someone like him to change the world so easily. Yukina realized that this is why he hides his identity and tries to live as a human. He told her that he can't fully control his powers, so he tends not to use them often, but she felt that he was making excuses for not doing anything, but her impression of him changed after she understood his way of thinking about using his powers for good. After Yukina left, Nagisa felt so full from eating so much food that she couldn't get up, and when she saw that Kojo was going to buy drinks at the store, she asked him to bring her an ice cream sundae. As Kojo walks down the hallway, Yukina appears in front of him like a ninja after jumping out of the bathroom to catch up with him before he leaves the building. He has no choice but to accompany her to the store, and she tells him that she feels as if she's breaking the curfew when they go out late at night. He realized it was because she was used to living in a dormitory. He asked her where she was born, and she replied that she didn't know anything about her origins demons, since everyone living in the high divine forest was orphaned and the talented ones were brought from all over the country to train to become offensive mages. On their way, Koju remembers his teacher's words about the Lion King organization and that they were created to do their duty. On their way, he notices Yukina admiring a cat-shaped doll and tells him that she used to see this type of doll because it was popular at her old school. He decides to take care of the doll and bring it to her through the lifting game and succeeds in picking up a doll the first time. They are surprised to see Natsuki behind them to ask what they are doing so late at night when a huge fire breaks out in a nearby neighborhood. Yukina decides to go herself to find out, and when he wants to go with her, she tells him that he's a fourth ancestor and can't get into trouble and tells him to go home and stay with his sister. Yukina then jumped on a train heading towards the fire and tried to look for the demon causing the fire until she found it in the form of a huge eagle with the master controlling it next to it. Then she was surprised to see a huge transparent hand blocking the eagle demon's attacks and attacking it. When she tried to approach the person controlling the demon, she found that he had been hit hard by a mysterious person wearing half glasses, so she asked him to stop fighting immobile demons, as this is considered a violation of the rules. He sarcastically told her that he wouldn't obey a law created by those who care about demon scum. As he was about to finish the person off, Yukina blocked him with a spear, and upon seeing the spear, the person realized that she was working for the Lion King organization. She wonders why an exorcist from the Western Church like him is chasing vampires, but he ignores her question and attacks her, so she decides to use the full power of her spear and attacks him back. Rudolph, realizing how powerful she was after using the secret organization spell, shot her in the leg and ordered his minion Astarte with the transparent hand to finish her off. Yukina found herself in trouble when she blocked Astarte's hand and found that she had summoned another hand to attack her. She thought that if she died now, would Koju mourn her loss? Then she was surprised when he intervened in the fight and blocked Astarte's blow. When Rudolph saw him, he felt that his magical powers were similar to those of the nobility and realized that he was one of the fourth progenitor's descendants. Koju tried to ask him to leave the island quietly, but Rudolph told him that he needs tremendous magical powers to reach his goal. Then he ordered Astarte to attack him, and then the fight between them began in front of Yukina, and he was deeply wounded by her blow. And then he lost control of his powers that appeared in public and began to gradually turn into a vampire. So Rudolph decided that it was time to retreat now. The next day, the police arrived at the scene and began investigating the incident. They initially thought the fire was caused by an electrical short circuit, and news began to spread around the island about the incident and the damage it caused. At that time, Yukina scolded Kojo for causing 50 billion yen in damage after he lost control of his powers last night, and although he is an immortal vampire, he will not be able to repay the amount even after 500 years. He asked her if she had reported the incident to her organization, and she said that she was reluctant to report it since he was not solely responsible for what happened and he saved her from death, so he told her that it was just self-defense, even though they have no evidence about it. She said she would testify on his behalf that he was using his right to self-defense, but she couldn't guarantee that they would believe her, as her organization does not have a good relationship with the police, and they noticed that one of the consequences of yesterday's incident was the crowding of people at the train station due to the change in the arrival times of the trains. She tells him that he overused his power a little, and he tells her that his power never takes orders from him. He then tells her that his demons that he inherited from Aurora, the fourth ancestor, did not accept him, so he can only control them under normal circumstances, and Yukina thinks that they should find a way to keep them under control at all times. Koju wondered why she hadn't thought of eliminating him despite knowing the issues he was having with his special powers. She told him that she didn't think he was a bad person anyway, and curiously asked why the demons rejected him, to which he replied that he was a virgin vampire since he hadn't sucked the blood of any living creatures yet. Motoki notices that the girl with him isn't his sister and tells him that she's a transfer student in his sister's class who happens to live near where he lives, and he's surprised to see what she's carrying on her back and thinks she's in a band. Koju tried to get her out of that awkward situation and pretended that she had to go see Nagisa. Yukina took it in stride and left immediately, and Motoki felt that she was a little weird. After that, Koju went to his classroom and met Asagi inside and learned that the explosion yesterday caused the destruction of the natural disaster prevention device she helped create, so he apologized to her without realizing it and then expressed his gratitude to her for helping him when needed. Asagi blushes and tells him that she's just a simple part-time girl. He tells her that no one is as simple as she is, and she asks him curiously about Yukina, but is interrupted by the sound of some colleagues checking a picture of a hot girl on their phone. One of them walks up to Koju and asks him if he can introduce him to this girl as his sister's classmate. It turns out that they somehow got a picture of Yukina, and Natsuki asks him to go to the guidance office on his lunch break with Yukina. Koju gets nervous when his classmates find out that he's in a relationship with her, and to make matters worse, she expresses that she wants to know what they were doing after they ran away from her late last night. A girl named Rin approached him and scolded him for doing such things while he had Asagi. He told her that they were just friends, and when he turned towards her, he found her tearing up his homework copy and throwing it in the garbage angrily. Yukina and company are then questioned by Natsuki about yesterday's explosion, and she tells them that 6 similar incidents have been observed in the past 2 months. When she gives them the incident reports, Koju notices photos of the 2 young men who had harassed Yukina earlier. Natsuki tells them that the 2 young men are victims of the explosions and have not yet regained consciousness, and the reason she called them is to warn them about the criminal who hunts vampires indiscriminately, and asked Koju to stop hanging around late at night because he might be attacked before leaving. Yukina was surprised when Natsuki gave her cat doll and remembered that she forgot it yesterday when she saw the fire. After they leave the office, Yukina complains that the police are looking for Rudolph and Astarte and that they are behind the recent vampire hunts, and Koju realizes that they are the only ones who have encountered them and are still alive. He then asked her why she didn't tell Natsuki about it, and she told him that the involvement of a deacon from the Church of Lotharingia would be considered an international magical crime under the jurisdiction of the Lion King organization, and he would be accused of being a 4th ancestor and a threat to everyone. Kojo found that he had a curfew at night until old Rudolph was caught and followed him, but tried to think of a way to get them before the police found them, and Yukina said that they didn't have enough information about him and that he must have more than one place to hide. She gave him a notebook with the names of all the Western European church facilities on the island, and they kept guessing about the least suspicious place Rudolph would go. Yukina thought it would take too long to gather information about locations and branches, even with the help of her organization, so Koju went to Asadi and begged her to help him gather information about companies that operate outside of Lotharingia. She asks him if it was Yukina who asked him, but he tells her that he wants to gather information for his own purposes. She decides to help him and searches for all companies with the same name, but she doesn't find anything, thinking that maybe the companies have withdrawn due to the recent yen boom. She thought she could see if she could find any offices that were still around after the companies shut down. She found one office located in the north of the island, Lotharingia's main office, and most of its research is centered around half-humans. Koju heads to the office's factory with Yukina and finds that it fits all the criteria for Rudolph to use it as a hideout. Yukina tells him to wait outside in case there's a fight since he fights like a novice and loses control easily. She blushes when he tells her that he's worried about her and doesn't want her to be in danger alone. She agrees to go together on the grounds that her primary duty is to keep an eye on him, provided they run away when Rudolph and his henchmen try to lure them into a fight. When they reach the door to the lab, they found it chained shut, so Yukina used the power of her spear to remove the lock completely, and together they headed inside until they found themselves in a huge laboratory containing many test tubes with a huge number of creatures inside. Astarte then appeared in front of them, warning them to leave the island immediately because it was about to sink, as it was a transient island floating above the crossroads of the Dragon Veins in the South Sea and would collapse as soon as it lost its foundation stone. Rudolph then told them that their goal is to find the island's foundation stone, which to him is an eternal treasure. Kojo felt angry that he had implanted a demon in a little girl, so he told him that he had done this with all the test subjects and succeeded in creating beings whose bodies added unhatched demons, and as a result Astarte would not last more than 2 weeks before she died. He then went on to explain that the reason they were chasing demons was so that Astarte could feed on them to extend her life and live longer, and so that he could release the magic sealed inside her. Yukina was furious that he was using Astarte like a tool. He told her that she was just as much of a tool as he was, an unwanted girl bought by the Lion King organization and infused with vampire eradication techniques. As he spoke, Koju's anger towards him grew until he lost control of his powers again and summoned his demon. Rudolph, seeing how strong he was, ordered Astarte to get rid of them. She summoned her demon in the form of a huge giant and went inside him. Koju attacked her and told her not to obey a bastard like Rudolph. Astarte and Yukina started fighting, and when she noticed her demon's enhanced strength, Rudolph told her that he had given her a technique that uses vibrations to cancel magic and cut through barriers, the same technique that her organization had developed and used against him. She realized that Koju was attacked as if she had hit him with her spear, and soon she received a strong blow from Astarte. Then Rudolph approached her and decided to finish her himself, and when he raised his axe, she closed her eyes, and after she opened them again, she found that Koju had sacrificed himself and received the axe blow instead of her, which caused his head to be cut off. Then they left quietly to complete the mission to find a treasure, leaving Yukina holding Koju's head amidst a lake of blood. Meanwhile, Asagi is working on a new project at the island company when she feels a violent vibration inside the building. Her colleague tells her over the radio that 2 intruders have destroyed one of the support columns and broken into the company's headquarters. On the other side, Rudolph and Astarte are inside the company after eliminating all the guards who got in their way, and Rudolph and Astarte have recovered Koju's head. On the other side, Koju regained consciousness, and Yukina told him that he had been dead for some time until his wounds healed on their own, and he regained the blood he had lost and scolded him for not telling her that he could come back to life even if he was decapitated. He told her that he didn't know about his ability to come back to life under any circumstances. She asked him why he risked his life to protect her when she was basically tasked with eliminating him in the worst case scenario, so her death wouldn't cause anyone any grief since she's just a tool like Astarte. Koju tried to get up, but he lost his balance and fell right on top of her, but she realized that he did it on purpose. Then he came closer to her, smelled her scent, told her how beautiful and cute she was, and asked her not to call herself a tool, while her face almost exploded with shame. Then he got up and sat down next to her and apologized for his sudden perverted behavior. They were surprised by an earthquake that hit the place, and Koju panicked because this island is made by human hands and has never been hit by an earthquake before. He checks his phone to see if there is any breaking news and finds that the central support gate at the parent company has been attacked, and realizes that Asagi is in danger as she is an employee there. Meanwhile, Asagi is stunned by the fire burning in front of her inside the company and the bodies of the guards scattered all around her. Then she receives a call from Koju and tells him that she is trapped while the entire building is collapsing. He realizes that Rudolph and Astarte are the ones who broke into the company. He asks her where they are going, and she checks the security cameras and finds that they are on the lower level, destroying the robot guards and making their way to the lowest level of the gate, which is called the linking block. When he asked her if this level was valuable, she told him that it was a steel barrier that binds the gigavolts from all devices and absorbs the effect of wave vibrations so that the island does not disintegrate. So he asked her to look for the treasure. Yukina decides to follow them, but Koju wonders what they can do when they get to the company, and for a moment he feels that Rudolph is right. Then he said that he was in no position to judge who was right and who was wrong. Yukina felt vulnerable because of his inability to control his powers, so she cut herself and asked him to suck her blood if it would make the demon inside him recognize him, because she couldn't defeat Rudolph on her own. He tried to get out of it by saying he had no intention of fighting him, but she told him that she was sure he wanted to stop them and that she was willing to take the responsibility with him and save everyone on the island together. Koju found that he had no choice but to drink her blood, and when he approached her and licked some of it, his vampiric instincts kicked in and he bit down and drank more blood. Meanwhile, Rudolph and Astarte reached the binding block, specifically the jewel in the center that contains the hand of the patron saint of the Western European Church. Rudolph approached the jewel, crying in disbelief that he had finally reached his goal, the jewel stolen from the Church of Lotharingia, known as the Eternal Treasure, and continued to laugh hysterically. And when Astarte ordered to remove the shackles from the jewel to take it with them, he was interrupted by the arrival of Koju and Yukina and asked them about his obsession with obtaining the hand of the saint. He tells them that the island was built 40 years ago and was designed by a man named Itogami Sinra, who organically linked the 4 divine beasts to stabilize the island and control the dragon veins on which it was built. Itogami was faced with one problem in order to bind the monsters together: the power of the cornerstone. He had to find a force that would act as the yellow dragon, the leader of the 4 divine beasts. He had to get his hands dirty with abominable magic and use a victim to redeem the island inhabited by demons. This victim was a venerable saint who was kidnapped from his church, making him vow to recover the sacred relic at any cost, even if it meant taking the lives of more than 500,000 souls living on the island. Yukina suggested that he should not resort to force and recover his relic by filing a complaint, since the island can build a strong foundation without the need for human sacrifice. He laughed at her and said that she would not have said that if the saint was one of her relatives who had been forced to suffer. Koju had no choice but to fight, so he approached Rudolph and told him that he owed him for tearing his body apart, then summoned his own power in preparation to repay Rudolph. Astarte rushed to attack him, but Yukina blocked her after deciding to fight alongside him. Rudolph was shocked to see Koju's magical power despite his novice movements, so he decided to take it seriously and not take him lightly. Then he summoned his holy shield and began to strike at him. Koju summoned his demon Orum, which appeared in the form of a giant lion surrounded by flames and lightning, and Rudolph could not resist the attack of the lion demon alone, so he used Astarte to counter it, and the lion's power began to reach the entire barrier, which affected its protection system. Koju then marveled that even his own demon couldn't break Astarte's barrier. Yukina took advantage of the opportunity and used the full power of her spear to break through the barrier, and Koju then turned his full demon power on her and ended up crushing her and losing the huge demon. Before Rudolph could think of anything to do, Yukina rushed towards him and broke his holy armor with her magical power. Then Koju gave him the final blow, and he ended up lying next to his disciple, unable to move. Then Koju told him that he was not wrong in wanting to recover the saint's arm, but he chose the wrong path. Then he approached Yukina and hugged her to smell her scent and thanked her for being able to beat them thanks to her. Then he went to Astarte and bit her. Yukina was surprised by his behavior and told her that he wanted to try to control her demon to make her live longer. She realized that he used her as a catalyst to get excited and grow his fangs again, so she got angry and crushed him with her spear. After that, the news spread online and everyone learned of Koju's heroic deed and that he had finally awakened the demon inside him. Motoki realized that everything had gone according to plan. Koju had a blood partner, and it turned out that the organization deliberately sent Yukina to him to fall in love with her to stay under their control and not cause the destruction of the island. The next day, Yukina packs up to leave after violating several orders and breaking her spear over Koju's head yesterday, but she feels no remorse because all her actions came from from within. So Koju gives her the spear again, and she is surprised that he repaired it and told her that a foolish vampire like him will need someone to watch over him at all times. One day, a criminal was trying to escape after realizing that his gang's operation to attack the island had been leaked, but he was surprised by Natsuki, who took away his wireless detonator before he could detonate another bomb. He attacked her and tried to get close enough, but she used her power to disappear in front of him, then reappeared at the top of the roof, and he realized that she was the famous Void Witch, who has the highest rank of magic. Then Natsuki used her power to overpower him, then tied him up and decided to leave his interrogation to the island guards to go home and prepare for tomorrow's lesson. The next day, Koju received the news that his mother would be back today, so he went to his room to tell his sister to make coffee for 3 people, but he was surprised to find Yukina inside, changing her clothes, and as soon as he asked her why she was here, she kicked him out of the room. Nagisa scolds him for telling him that Yukina is coming over in the morning and accuses him of being a pervert for deliberately peeking at her naked, but he doesn't remember her coming. She tells him that they are currently getting ready for their cheerleading uniforms for the tennis tournament. He was surprised that Yukina would be interested in participating in something like that. Nagisa told him that all the boys begged her to cheer at the tournament so that they could do their best to win, and he felt a little embarrassed that no one should go to the trouble of cheering him on at a school tournament. Afterward, he heads to his school and meets Asagi on the way. She gives him rackets for tennis practice that she borrowed from her sister, then asks him what event he's playing in, and he says he asked Rin to put him in the easiest event. Asagi felt that he was being irresponsible for not wanting to put effort into the one thing he's good at and told him to take it more seriously. When they got to class, she was shocked that she was placed in a doubles match with him. Rin told her it was a new arrangement for this year, and since she likes badminton and Kojo doesn't care what sport he plays, it seemed like a good fit for both of them. She then realizes that Motoki is behind putting them on a doubles team together after Koju agrees to play with her. Meanwhile, some detectives have gone to Kanwa's development department to arrest head researcher Yusuke for violating magical trade laws with some of the equipment in his lab. Natsuki appeared behind them and told him that they were arresting a follower of Christopher Gardosh and told him not to resist. Yusuke turned into a monster and realized that he was an ally of the Emperor Black Death cult, so she attacked him and ordered Astarte to finish him off. Yusuke was shocked when he was severely beaten by a half-human with a demon inside her, and then they managed to handcuff him and drag him to the prison. When she searched the lab, she found that there were materials already smuggled in for Christopher and wondered what he was up to. On the other side, Koju entered the training hall and found all the doubles team doing their own training and getting close to each other. He realized why Asagi was angry about putting them on the same team and went to get a drink for himself and thought he had to make up an excuse to go home. He dodged attack after attack until he hid in the grass and saw 2 golden and silver lions appear out of nowhere and surround him, thinking it would be an easy fight if he was allowed to summon his demon. He dodged their attacks and kept a safe distance from them until Yukina appeared and saved him by overcoming the 2 lions. She told him that she came after her. Shikigami had identified an evil magical force nearby and asked him if he knew who was targeting him, but he had no idea. Yukina marveled at the seal logo on the envelope and told him that it was probably a letter from Dimitri Vatler, the Prince of Ardiel. She told him that he was a warlord of the Warlords province and a member of the First Order, ruled by a vampire who controls 72 demons. I told him that through his cooperation, a sacred tree was created to allow humans and vampires to coexist. He was surprised that such a high-ranking person was on the island, and I guessed that he might want to meet him, so he had no choice but to accept the invitation that he found inside the envelope. Then he started thinking about who should attend the party with him and realized that he couldn't take his sister or Asagi, so he decided to bring it up with Natsuki. Yukina was surprised by his decision and indirectly told him that she would like to attend the party with him as his watcher, then remembered that she had nothing to wear to the party. When they returned home, they were surprised to find a large envelope from the Lion King organization inside. After opening it, they found a dress for Yukina, and when Koju read the description of the dress, Yukina made up her mind to erase his memory after knowing her body measurements in detail. In the evening, they go to the venue together on Dimitri's yacht, known as the Tomb of Storms, and Koju notices that it's unusual for Yukina to wear a hairpin and says that her former roommate in the Divine Forest dormitory gave it to her. Kojo felt they were in the wrong place and wanted to leave, but Yukina told him he should be bolder because the 4th ancestor is the one who welcomes visitors to the island from the 1st ancestor. When they board the yacht, Koju senses a demon approaching, so he pushes Yukina away and fends off the demon's attack for her. Dimitri appears out of nowhere, admiring his strength and apologizing for his rudeness in testing his fighting skills, and Yukina marvels that she didn't sense his presence before he attacked her. Koju is surprised when someone throws forks and spoons at him. Then a girl named Sayaka appears in front of them and tells him to stay away from Yukina, then approaches her and hugs her, who turns out to be an old friend of hers who is responsible for keeping an eye on Dimitri. Kojo felt strange and had no idea what to do in this situation, and was even more surprised by Sayaka's harsh treatment of him for no reason, so he asked Yukina who she was, and she told him it was her former roommate who told him about her. Sayaka then tells him that she specializes in magic and assassination, and her role is to eliminate anyone who follows Yukina, and advises him to stop following her if he wants to save his life. Meanwhile, Asaji expresses her displeasure at the idea of Kojo hanging around with Yukina without specifying whether or not they are dating. Motoki tells her that his only explanation is that they may have made love, and suggests that she try to seduce him to get the information she wants to know. After she got off the phone with him, she sat down at her computer and received a decryption request. She realized that one of the agents was trying to challenge her to solve a mystery. On the other hand, Koju wondered how Dimitri knew Aurora and her fifth demon. Dimitri told him that they were in love before he consumed her and merged her with his body. Then Koju was surprised that Koju approached him and wanted to give him some love for having consumed his fiancée. He told him that he was a boy like him and had nothing to do with his relationship with Aurora. Then Dimitri noticed the smell of Yukina's blood emanating from Koju's body and realized that she was the medium for awakening the demon Orum inside him. Yukina asked why he invited them to the party, and he told her that he wanted to ask them about Christopher Gardosh, a former soldier who ended up as a terrorist with a reputation throughout Europe and currently heads a group called the Emperor of the Black Death Cult. Koju tells him that he heard that this group was disbanded years ago after the death of their leader. Dimitri tells him that he was the one who got rid of their leader, but the survivors then installed Christopher as their leader, and the group came back and managed to infiltrate the island. Sayaka went on to say that they aimed to abrogate the sacred tree between humans and vampires and take over the rule of the first ancestral warlord, and planned to accomplish these goals by stirring up trouble on the island. Yukina wondered if Dimitri's reason for being on the island was to assassinate Christopher, but he told them that he wouldn't bother to confront him unless he did something himself, and that he had the power to flood the entire island if his life was in danger, so he wanted to apologize in advance in case he had to do so. Yukina decides to take the terrorist group into her own hands and tells him that she will capture the Black Death Emperor's cult instead of Koju, and Dimitri accepts her offer to see how strong she is and if she is suitable to be Koju's blood partner. Meanwhile, Asadi finishes deciphering the encryption she was assigned and notices the term Nalakuvira, but doesn't pay much attention to it. She closes the computer and lies down on her bed, thinking about Koju and Yukina and whether Motoki's guess is correct. The next day, Koju woke up and found Asadi sitting on top of him on the bed, smiling suspiciously. He asked her to get off his bed, but when she refused, he forced her down and they fell to the floor together just as Yukina and Nagisa entered the room and saw them in a suspicious situation. Yukina immediately left, followed by Nagisa. Asadi wondered if Yukina was jealous, and he told her that they weren't dating. She took the opportunity to ask him if they had ever made love. Koju denied it and asked her why she came to his room in the first place. She told him that she came to declare war and left quietly. Meanwhile, Sayaka was watching them through her shikigami and decided to pass judgment on someone like him. After that, Koju went to Yukina and apologized to her for what she had just seen and that it was just a silly joke from Asaji. She told him that he would have put himself in trouble or awakened his vampire instincts at that time and asked him to think of a solution to avoid this kind of situation. He then asked her what she planned to do about the group of terrorists who broke into the island, and she said that she planned to talk to Natsuki to get some information. When they went to meet her in her office, Yukina told her that they were looking for Christopher Gardosh and wanted to catch him before he and Dimitri clashed. Natsuki was furious that they knew about this. Then they were surprised to find Estard in her office. She told them that she had sentenced her to 3 years of service as punishment for helping Rudolph, then asked them not to think about capturing Christopher, as Dimitri is a monster despite his elegant appearance. Then she added that the group will not be able to do anything in front of him, as the ancient weapon they are looking for is now unusable and is known as the weapon of the goddess Nalakavira, which caused the destruction of countless civilizations in human history, and the Kano Chemical Company smuggled it with a stone tablet explaining how to use it, and currently no one knows where the Nalakavira is. Then she continued that many analysts and researchers failed to decrypt the weapon's codes, but she was able to arrest the researcher who helped decrypt it, and there is no sign of the weapon leaving the island yet. She then advised Kojo to worry about Dimitri, as he had exterminated 2 high-ranking second-generation vampire leaders, and warned him that he could be his next prey. He thought about her words all day and realized that it would be difficult to defeat Dimitri before he could control his demon. She wondered if he wanted to suck her blood to motivate himself, but he felt confused and told her that he had no intention of doing anything to her, so she got angry and continued on her way without waiting for him. Kojo then turned to Asagi and begged her to help him investigate Nalakufera. Remembering that the name sounded familiar to her, she agreed to help him, and they skipped class together and went to the student council room, where Motoki took the opportunity to observe them. Asagi searches for the weapon and finds that it is an ancient relic discovered in hibernation at the end of the 20th century, a biological weapon, and when she notices someone coming, she pushes Kojo down to hide before they are discovered. Kojo continued to resist his instincts as he was very close to Asagi, who was almost lying in his arms. Then he noticed that she was wearing the earrings he had bought for for her, which increased his desires until Asaji noticed that he began to bleed from his nose. After that, they left the room and went to the roof, and he apologized to her for making her miss class to help him. And when Asaji went to buy some drinks, he was surprised when Sayaka appeared out of nowhere to attack him and told him that she intended to get rid of him after discovering that he had sucked Yukina's blood to satisfy his instincts, in addition to messing around with another girl. She then continues to attack him and blames him, saying that if it weren't for him, Yukina wouldn't have to fight Rudolph or get involved with the terrorist group, and that she intends to protect her only friend from him, and manages to inflict a deep wound in the center of his chest, and ends up trying to suppress his suddenly unleashed demonic powers before the situation inside the school becomes catastrophic. While trying to control his powers, Koju is surprised when Asaji arrives with drinks and wonders why Sayaka is with him and carrying a huge sword, and when she decides to approach her, Koju starts to lose control of his powers and causes most of the school's facilities to be destroyed, and Asaji loses consciousness after she hits the wall due to the impact of his power waves. Yukina appeared out of nowhere and used the power of her spear to stop him, scolding them for their reckless behavior, then took Asaji to the school clinic, while Motoki walked out of his classroom after temporarily losing his hearing due to Kojo's power. Yukina and Nagisa were relieved when Asaji told them that she had no serious injuries and just needed to get some rest. When Asaji regained consciousness, Nagisa approached her and started asking her a lot of questions all at once. Asaji remembered seeing a mysterious girl with a sword in front of Koju, and Yukina told her that she was a friend of hers who was probably attacking him out of jealousy over his recent closeness to her. While Koju and Sayaka were forced to stay on the roof until Yukina's return, neither of them dared to leave before she arrived, and Sayaka expressed her desire not to spend any more time in the same place with a pervert like him. Asaji thought it was a good time to ask her about the nature of her relationship with him. He told her that she was right about getting Yukina in trouble because of him. She wondered how a vampire could be grateful for someone to watch over him and take him out at any moment, so he told her that the surveillance thing sounds annoying, but Yukina is a good girl. Meanwhile, Astarte spotted a group of demons heading towards them, and soon they broke into the nursing room. Nagisa lost control of herself and screamed until one of the criminals almost shot her, but Yukina forced her to lose consciousness in order to shut up and not provoke the criminal further with her screams. Then their leader approached Asaji and offered her to carry out a mission for him in exchange for staying safe and being released after the mission. When she asked who he was, he told her that he was Christopher Gardosh himself, and when Astarte heard his name, she was about to activate her self-defense system, but he shot her before she did. Meanwhile, Koju and Sayaka rushed downstairs after hearing the gunshots. When they arrived, they found Astarte drowning in her own blood, while Motoki on the other side saw the rest of the girls after they were kidnapped by the terrorist group and escaped from the school. Motoki tried to catch up with the car, but when he realized he was going to lose track of it, he took a capsule that boosted his abilities and flew through the air until he landed on a rooftop and realized that the car was on its way to the airport and thought that Christopher was going to take them off the island. When the plane took off, Motoki had to take more pills, put his headphones on, and summon a clone of himself to follow the plane into the sky, but his clone was attacked by Dimitri, who appeared to be standing right behind him and attacked him so he wouldn't get in the way of the group. On the other side of the plane, Nagisa is still unconscious. When Asaji realizes that Koju and his sister trust her, she decides to tell her a story about how Nagisa was in danger earlier and almost died. She then tells her that she was one of the victims of the train accident involving vampires 4 years ago, and the doctors thought she would never be able to regain consciousness again, which is why she is hysterically terrified of vampires and demons. Then she apologized to Yukina for getting her involved in this because it's all her fault that she made an illegal hack for a client that led the Black Death Emperor's group to them, and it's the first time she's experienced such a backlash. Christopher interrupted her and told her that she was very popular among programmers. He then gave her the Sovereign EX manual, the latest model in the field of programming and hacking, and told her to use it to analyze and decrypt the commands to use the Nalakavira weapon. She realized that he was behind the person who sent her the decryption request yesterday. He said that he had sent the same request to 150 other hackers, but she was the only one of them who could solve the puzzle in record time. She said that she did not do it out of passion, but she considers programming and decryption as a window to escape from reality for a while. He told her that he wanted to eliminate the first ancestor and needed the power of the Nalakavira to do so, even if it would involve the entire world in an all-out war. He said he didn't mind activating the weapon now that they had it up and running thanks to her, but they wouldn't be able to control it in any way, and it would kill her family and friends, so she had no choice but to cooperate with them and help them control the weapon by decrypting the rest of the tablets. Koju and Sayaka then took a taxi to the airport after taking care of Astarte and treating her injuries, and when they approached the airport, they found the road blocked and surrounded by police. Koju picked up Sayaka and jumped to the other side of the road, then headed inside the airport and met Natsuki, who scolded him for warning him not to interfere. Dimitri then appeared in front of them and told Natsuki that he deliberately lured all the island guards to the airport start to use them as targets to test the new weapon. They were shocked when Nalakavira appeared in his new form in front of them and started attacking everyone in front of him. Yukina asks Christopher why he helped Dimitri and sided with him, and he tells her that he doesn't know how immortal vampires think, but he probably did it to have some fun. Yukina gets angry and says that the lives of the islanders are at stake. He tells her that the death of a few demons on the island won't make any difference, and then warns Asagi that she needs to hurry up and make a decision about cooperating with the group. Asagi decides to start deciphering the tablets, but Nagisa regains consciousness and looks like a robot, telling her not to rush into a decision and that Koju will somehow buy them some time, and then loses consciousness again. Meanwhile, Dimitri was having a great time watching the Nalakavira's superpowers, and when Koju realized that he had collaborated with Christopher to activate the weapon, he told him that he would be responsible for destroying it if he had to, then summoned two demons and fused them together in the form of a huge serpent. Koju receives a call from Yukina telling him to maintain the current state of the weapon and not try to destroy it, so he goes to Dimitri and tells him that he will take care of the weapon himself, but he says that he wants to steal his prey, so Koju has no choice but to fight, and Dimitri destroys the bridge leading to the other side of the airport to prevent the island guards from interfering in their fight, and Koju prepares to face him mano a mano. Koju found that the Nalakavira was targeting him without warning and began to dodge his blows until Sayaka intervened and blocked the laser wave aimed at them, then rushed towards him and managed to destroy some of his legs, and when she got close enough to deliver the final blow, she was surprised to find that there was a barrier preventing her blade from reaching the body of the weapon. Dimitri tells them that Nalakavira has the ability to learn and adapt to his opponent's attacks. Sayaka retreats and hides with Koju among the debris until he decides to use his demon to prevent the weapon from escaping and buy some time, but they all end up falling into a crater after he destroys the ground beneath them and loses control of his power. When they regain their balance underground, they are shocked to see the weapon repairing the damage it received from Koju's attack and restoring its limbs to normal, and Koju decides to start finding a way out of this place before they get into an unequal fight against the weapon. Meanwhile, Asagi analyzes and decodes the weapon using her AI program Mogwai and finds that it is encrypted in a language that cannot be deciphered by logical thinking like other Cephers, so it is called the Weapon of the Gods. On the other hand, Yukina sneaked into a secret room inside the ship after defeating two demon guards. When she entered, she found Christopher inside waiting for her and admired her ability to defeat two demons with her bare hands. He told her that Dimitri himself did not know that there were so many copies of the Nalakavira weapon, and she realized that his goal from the beginning was to obtain an army of biological weapons to ensure his victory in the war against the first ancestor and weaken their position in supporting the sacred treaty. Then he transformed into his demonic form and attacked her. Noticing that he had a natural barrier that prevented her blows from affecting his body, she went out to a large area on top of the ship to give herself an advantage and was surprised when her spear came to her, which Motoki had given her by manipulating the winds. Using the full force of her spear, she lunges at him and manages to sever his arm. She thinks she's won, but soon finds that his followers have taken Asagi and Nagisa hostage, and she ends up surrounded on all sides by Nalakavira's weapons. In the meantime, Koju and Sayaka reached a dead end underground and started looking for another way. Sayaka told him that she used to take care of the other girls because she was bigger than them, but when he picked her up and jumped her to the other side of the airport, it was the first time she felt like she was being taken care of. Koju is surprised when she offers to suck her blood as a token of her gratitude in exchange for not telling Yukina, and when he finds her exposing part of her body, he can't resist his instincts and approaches her and sinks his fangs into her body. In the meantime, everyone saw the appearance of one of Koju's fourth ancestor demons in the form of a horse, and Christopher left, leaving Yukina to face his followers, but she was soon surprised when Natsuki attacked them with her magic and told her that she was able to travel on the ship after the barrier around her was removed. Natsuki then decides to take the two girls to a safe place. When Yukina tells her that she intends to join Kojo in his battle, she tells her that he may not need her help now, and that's when she realizes that he has summoned a different demon than the one she saw last time and is handling Nalakavira's weapons on his own. Sayaka scolds Kojo for causing too much chaos with his demon in exchange for their access to the roof, thinking that Yukina will always be in danger as long as she's with him. They begin to confront the Nalakavira army, only to be surprised by missiles randomly attacking the area around the airport and destroying neighboring buildings. Dimitri realizes that Christopher has successfully activated the old weapon and has the ability to control the entire bioweapon army, and sarcastically asks Kojo if he should take care of it for him. Kojo feels provoked that everyone wants to do whatever they want and decides that this is his fight alone, no matter who his opponent is. As he rushes towards the weapons, Yukina appears out of nowhere and tells him that it's their fight, and the three of them begin to face the army together. Kojo summons the demon Orum to slaughter several Nalakaviras at once, and when the demon's attack reaches the command center, Christopher's excitement and sense of battle is heightened. He told them that he had stored the data of Orum's worm's attack inside the biological weapon, which prevents it from being affected, so he decided to attack him with his new demon. But he was surprised that the weapon army had self-repaired itself and became stronger than before. Koju tries to think of a way to defeat this kind of super weapon, and Yukina tells him that they will be able to beat them because according to what Mugwei told her, Asagi created a new secret command while deciphering the control code of the weapons, a virus that self-destructs them when they use the self-repair function. Sayaka then told Kojo that all he had to do was enter the command module somehow and activate the command, while Sayaka turned her sword into a bow and used her magic arrows to immobilize the weapons as Koju and Yukina rushed towards Christopher. Christopher had no choice but to come out after his army was crippled, and when he jumped towards them to attack with his knife, Sayaka forced him down with her arrow. Then Yukina boarded the command module and activated the self-destruct command, and within seconds all the biological weapons were reduced to crumbs. After that, Dimitri sat watching the destruction and devastation, feeling that he had a good time thanks to Koju and his comrades. Then he found the third president of the Lion King organization approaching behind him and giving him an envelope containing the approval of his application that he had previously submitted to the organization to take the position of ambassador of the sovereignty of the warlord on the island. Then she asked him if he had thought about joining the Black Death Emperor group, and he told her that he provoked this violent fight just to amuse himself, and after his application was approved, he realized he would not be bored next time. One night, Ranvold's airship was attacked by a mysterious woman named Basler, who was looking for a girl being cared for by those in charge of the ship and offered to hand her over in exchange for a peaceful death. One of the airship's guards drew his holy sword in preparation to confront her. Basler was approached by one of her followers who told her that she was not in the airship. She realized that she had escaped, and the guard started to attack them, but she passed him in a flash and was shocked when she summoned the angel's supernatural power and completely destroyed the airship. The next morning, Koju is distracted on his way to school and he remembers Asadi kissing him in the hospital and confessing her love for him. Yukina asks if there is anything to worry about, and he feels a little embarrassed, then tells her that he doesn't think anything of it. When they arrived, he told her that Sayaka had been calling him in the middle of the night for no reason since the day they fought the terrorists, and that he wasn't getting enough sleep at night. Yukina was surprised since she already knew Sayaka's dislike for phones, so he thought she might be worried about Yukina being with him. Afterward, Koju sat there thinking that he couldn't understand women at all until Motoki joined him and noticed the exhaustion on his face. Rin approached him and told him that he looked like he was having trouble with human relationships, especially with a girl close to him. Koju marveled that she could tell all this from his face alone. Motoki laughed at him and told him that he always falls for speculation and guesswork, and it turned out that Rin was just leading him on and had no idea what was going on in his head. Then Asagi joined them, yawning, and Rin realized that something was wrong between her and Kojo, who hadn't slept well either. When they were alone, Asagi asked him to meet her in the art room after class and whispered that he shouldn't tell anyone. When Kojo did as she asked, he entered the art room and found her waiting for him. She asked him to take off his jacket so she could start drawing him, and he realized that she wanted to draw him for her elective art project. While she was drawing him, he remembered when he went out in the middle of the night and found Nagisa on her laptop crying and not expecting anyone to see her in this situation. Then his thoughts were interrupted by Asagi angrily asking him to change his posture or facial features. Then it occurred to her that he might need to change his clothes, so she went and got several cosplay costumes in a large box and asked him to change his clothes to look more appropriate to the painting, but he felt that he would look ridiculous if he wore this kind of clothes alone. She decided to change with him and chose to wear a maid's costume while he wore a classical costume, and he was surprised that she was photographing him for future reference, so he decided to make a countermeasure and photographed her as a countermeasure in case she spread his photos among his classmates. Afterwards, she wondered if he had anything to hide from her lately and offered to tell each other what was on his mind, and they agreed to talk about it on Saturday after the art exhibition. Koju was distracted the whole time until he ran into Yukina on his way home. She asks him angrily what he was doing up so late, and he tells her that he was helping a friend with an art project, then feels embarrassed when he realizes that she was watching him the whole time he was with Asagi when she mentioned the photo shoot. He then decided to ask her if it would be okay to tell Asagi that he was a fourth ancestor vampire, but at the same time he thought it would be better if she never found out, even though she could get in a lot of trouble because of him. Yukina said that it was up to him whether or not he wanted to tell her, since he had the right to make either decision, and told him that she would always keep an eye on him no matter what, then remembered his sister, and told him that she would be his biggest problem if he decided to reveal the truth about himself. Thinking about how his sister would react if she found out about him, he saw Nagisa standing with a stranger halfway out the window and noticed that he was giving her an envelope with a letter in it, which Yukina guessed was a love letter. When Koju tells her that no one would think of sending a love letter to his sister, she tells him that she is very popular in her class because of her fun and funny personality and has many friends, which makes him surprised that his sister is doing really well in her life. When he reached his room, he received a call from Sayaka. He tried to end the call out quickly, but she told him that she needed him on an important matter and said that she would be coming to the island next weekend, as a very important person from the Digit Kingdom is arriving in Japan soon and is supposed to become her guide and will be busy most of the time. He was impressed that she was assigned such an important job despite her young age, and realized that she was calling him to tell him that she would not have time to see him and Yukina. Sayaka was furious that he guessed what she wanted to say before he gave her a chance to finish her sentence and hung up on him. Then he noticed that there was smoke coming from a distance from his house and suspected that it was a fire. The next day, Esther continues to watch his sister, and after she leaves her class, he would have followed her if not for Yukina's sudden appearance in front of him. He feels angry and has to tell her that he's worried about Nagisa, which makes him curious about her relationship with her unknown classmate. After following her to a rooftop, they heard the sounds of her and her classmate in suspicious positions and deduced from their conversation that they were doing something perverted together, which made him furious and broke into the rooftop by force, but he was surprised that they were just playing with a kitten. Nagisa was furious and asked why he came to her school. He told her that he saw her receiving a letter. Her classmate told him that she was looking for someone to adopt the kitten, so he gave her the names of his gym members who wouldn't mind taking the kitten. Nagisa felt bad because he thought he was confessing his love to her and had no right to spy on her anyway, so he rationalized that she hadn't told him she was looking for a shelter for a stray cat. She told him she would have brought it up to Yukina, but they don't allow animals in their building. He asks where she found the cat, and she tells him that her coworker Cannon was taking care of it. He turns around and finds Cannon approaching him and tells him that this all happened because of her and that she doesn't look much different from the cat. I feel uncomfortable seeing her face. She then tells him that she was his sister's classmate last year and always helped her since she is a shy girl and everyone avoids her. So Nagisa decides to go apologize to her classmate for the situation caused by her thoughtless brother and asks him to help Cannon instead. The three of them head to an abandoned church in the middle of the forest, which Cannon tells them is the home she took care of as a child. When they get there, they find several cats inside, using the church as a shelter. Yukina rushes over to them and pets them all happily, while Koju marvels at her ability to take care of so many cats and realizes that this is what his sister meant by helping. She told him that she always wondered if she would be able to take care of them forever, and Koju thought that she would be good for a nun because of her kindness to all creatures and her love for pets. Meanwhile, Natsuki went to meet Motoki and found that a demon in human form had been captured, but she was suffering from injuries. Motoki tells her that she was in a fierce fight with another demon, but the island company believes that she is not a demon and looks more like a normal human. He then tells her that her injuries resulted in the loss of her kidney and some organs around her diaphragm. Then Dimitri joins them and tells them that her soul has been completely devoured. Natsuki suspects that one of the warlord's predecessors is involved. He tells her that there have been many suspicious things happening lately, as the Digit Kingdom's Ranvold airship has been missing since yesterday, and there is no evidence that the Digit royal family is involved. But he asks them not to involve Kojo because he cannot defeat the entity he will have to face and may be killed. A few days later, Koju is able to find an adopter for a large number of cats, and one of his classmates is surprised to learn that he is friends with Cannon, known as the middle school saint, and when he asks her about her relationship with her, she tells him that the home where Cannon grew up was near her house, but they were separated after an accident in which she was the only survivor, and she remembers that accident whenever she looks at it. He then went back to Cannon and told her that he had managed to find an adopter for all the cats. He was surprised that she had found another stray cat while he was talking to her classmates, but she told him that she could take care of it on her own. Natsuki joins them and tells him that it's against the rules to bring animals to school, and she thought she'd let it go in exchange for him coming with her tonight to help her with something. When he meets her, he realizes that she wants him to help her take a start on a tour of the night markets. She then asked him if he knew about the accident that happened 3 days ago and told him that there were 5 similar accidents in the past 2 weeks and tasked him with catching the people responsible for these kinds of accidents. Kojo felt like she was asking him to take it easy since they still don't know how to fight the group of masked men who are causing explosions all over the island, and even Yukina couldn't identify their attack. Natsuki guesses that they might be using a special kind of magic or physical attacks and asks him not to cause their deaths as she wants to catch them alive. Then she notices 2 sparks in the sky rubbing against each other and realizes that there is an early fight between one of the demons. Orders Estar to shoot fireworks into the sky to distract the population from the fight. Koju realizes that the nightclub was planned from the beginning as a diversion, and Natsuki uses her power to teleport them to the scene of the incident, directly below where the 2 demons are clashing. Yukina notices that they are using an unknown type of magic to fight them, so she and Natsuki try to catch them and tie them up, but they are surprised that they can easily counter their abilities and break Natsuki's magic chains. When she realized that the building they were standing in was about to collapse due to their attack, she tried to hold it tightly with her chains and asked Koju to take care of the demons and not back down from fighting them. So he summoned his demon, and his clash with the demons caused a supernatural effect that reached the entire city. Yukina was surprised that the demon was able to withstand Koju's attack. Then they ignored him and started fighting fighting with each other again until they ripped each other's bodies apart, and then the mask of one of the demons broke, and Koju was surprised to find that it was Kanon, Nagisa's Kali, and then Kanon ate the other demon until she drank all her blood and flew away quietly, as if nothing had happened. The next day, Yukina looks up Kanon's address and finds that it's part of the Megscraft robotics dormitory, and they head to the company where the man who adopted Kanon after the incident at the house works. Yukina asks Basler, who works as a secretary for Mr. Kensei, to let her talk to him directly, and Basler tells her that he is not on the island at the moment, as he is at the company's research facility off the island with his daughter Kanon. Koju notices that Yukina has an airplane phobia but tries to pretend otherwise, so he holds her hand to reassure her and tells her that Nagisa has the same phobia and calms down when he holds her hand, and Yukina is embarrassed but happy at the same time. Koju wondered if Kensei had changed his daughter into a monster and sent her to fight demons, and she told him that when she first met Kanon, she felt familiar with her, as if she had known her for a long time and found that they had a lot in common. He realized that Kanon had deliberately helped them yesterday when the other demon almost attacked them and thought it was time for them to help her back. After arriving at the research facility, Yukina was completely helpless due to phobias, while Koju was surprised that the company had built a research facility on an empty island. Yukina realizes that Basler planned to take Koju off the island this way and put him on an empty island. Koju realizes that their phones won't work on this remote island and realizes that he was wrong to leave without telling Natsuki. Then they decided to look for food and shelter in case they couldn't get off the island today. On their way, they found small abandoned strongholds, and Yukina noticed bullet casings just below her feet, and from her new shape, she realized that there had been a shootout recently in this place. Sayaka went to the abandoned church where Kanon grew up and was surprised to find Motoki appearing in front of her. When she accepted his condition, he told her that Koju and Yukina are currently in trouble because they are involved in a case involving Kanon and only he knows where they are. While they were talking, Motoki found through his ability that two girls were approaching the church, and before he could think about hiding or running away, Nagisa and Asadi entered the church, and as soon as Asadi saw Sayaka, they started fighting with each other amidst Nagisa's surprise. On the other hand, Koju thought of fishing and getting enough water for him and Yukina by using the power of his demon and tried to tame it to act without making a mess. But to no avail, Yukina told him after his clothes were soaked in seawater that she had already prepared dinner. Then Koju found that the ingredients for dinner were all coconuts. She told him that she couldn't find anything else edible but coconuts, so she collected as many as she could. When they started eating, he remembered that he used to play with Nagisa when they were young and try to make some food and eat it, and one day he ended up with a stomachache. Then he was surprised when he remembered that it was Saturday and that he had promised Asagi a few days ago that he would help her with her project today. Yukina told him that she would not be angry with him in their current situation and would look for him everywhere, and he thought that if she went to meet anyone at Megscraft, she would be in danger and they would not be able to save Kanon in the current situation. Yukina realizes that he worries too much about others when he's in trouble himself, and they sit and watch the sunset together. On the other side, Asagi is able to locate them through the security cameras, and Moe tells them that they've gone to a deserted island belonging to Megscraft. Sayaka realizes that Asagi is not an ordinary person and learns why the Black Death Emperor group is interested in her. She tells her that she is just a high school student working part-time at a programming company and asks her if she can save Kojo and Yukina, and Sayaka thinks to use her connections to send a Coast Guard boat to them. They start fighting again about their relationship with Kojo, but Motoki tells them that he and Yukina can have romantic moments alone on the island while they spend their time fighting, so they have no choice but to call a temporary truce. Asagi asks why she is looking for Kanon, and she tells her that an acquaintance of hers wanted to see her but found that she went missing before she came to the island, and when she asks her who wants to see Kanon, she says it's Lafolia Riavine. At night, Koju woke up in the middle of his sleep and did not find Yukina around, so he went out to look for her, and then he found a mysterious object near the beach, and when he approached it, he found that it was Lafolia standing naked in the middle of the sea washing, and he thought it was Kanon and was surprised that his vampire instincts were activated at that time when he saw her. Koju tried to hold himself together as best he could, and when he calmed down, Lafolia disappeared from in front of him and Yukina appeared behind him and threatened to stab him if he turned around. He realized that she was also taking a bath, and when he asked her why she didn't tell him, she thought he was going to peek at her. He tells her that he saw a girl who looked like Kanon washing up near the beach, but she looked older. She asks him to lend her his jacket so they can start looking for Kanon's doppelganger, and on their way, they notice a ship coming towards them at the beach. Koju thought it was a ship coming to rescue them, while Yukina was able to recognize the identity of the ship as belonging to the Megscraft company, and soon it settled near the shore and a group of soldiers came out of it, and as soon as they saw Koju and Yukina near the entrance to the forest, they started shooting at them. Yukina helps him hide and tells him not to show himself no matter what and goes to take care of the soldiers herself, but they end up surrounded by more of them, and Koju thinks to use his demon power here and now. Lafolia Lopholia appears out of nowhere and rescues them, takes out the enemies with her cursed gun, asks them to join her up the hill, and then tells them her true identity and that she's being pursued by the robot soldiers of Mordcraft. She asks Kojo if his demon can sink their ship, and when he suggests they use it to escape the island, she tells him they can't control it because it's remotely operated from a main ship. When they find more soldiers coming their way, Kojo summons his demon and sinks the entire ship. Meanwhile, Kinsei is repairing the damage at Cannon, and Basler is furious that she's the only one who survived the fight and they won't be able to sell her at a high price, and they lost the rest of the robots he made. Kojo and Yukina had been captured and banished off the island to Lopholia, and now there was nothing to stop them from maximizing the cannon and sending it to destroy and sink the island. On the other hand, Kojo and Yukina realize that Megscraft is after Lopholia for her royal blood, and she tells them that Kinsei was a royal court magician in Digia before working as a researcher for the company, and many of the technologies he knows require royal blood as a psychic. Kojo asks how she and Cannon are related because they look so much alike, and she tells them that Cannon's real father is her grandfather, and that Cannon is the result of an affair her grandfather had with a Japanese woman living in Dijama, making Cannon essentially her aunt. It's not dark. Then she added that Cannon is considered royalty, and the royal palace was in chaos after discovering her alive, so she decided to look for her after learning that she is Kinsei's adopted daughter, and Kojo felt sad that it was too late to look for her, as she turned into a kind of monster with wings and shed the blood of one of her kind. Lopholia realized that Kinsei had created an artificial angel and achieved his goal of forcing humans to undergo an artificial spiritual evolution to be reborn as stronger beings. Then they noticed another ship coming towards them, and when Kojo was about to use his power to destroy it, he noticed someone raising a white flag, declaring that they had no intention of fighting. Kinsei and Basler came out and told them that he had obtained 7 more bodies for his project, but that Cannon had defeated 3 of them and was gaining more spiritual centers. Lopholia told him that what he was doing was poisoning Cannon's mind by taking the essence of other people's souls and putting it inside her body. He told her that spiritual evolution has no negative effect as long as it doesn't exceed the capacity of the human body, making them able to create a godlike entity. When Kojo asks how Megscraft got involved, Lo tells him that the company is in dire straits financially and they had to resort to making artificial angels as weapons to sell after failing to sell robots to the public. Basler then asks Lopholia to leave with them and not resist in exchange for her safety, and to their surprise, Cannon emerges from a coffin-like box, and it turns out that Basler intends to force Kojo to fight her and advises him not to let Yukina get between them. Yukina thought that she could break Cannon's magic with her spear since she was just an artificial angel, and when a bright light appeared through her body, Yukina jumped towards her but was surprised to find that her spear did not affect her at all. Kinsei tells her that the vibrations of her human-generated spear can't affect an artificial angel with the power of a true god. Basler then rushes towards her and draws her weapon to start a clash between them, while Cannon uses her full power to attack Kojo. He kept dodging all her blows and trying to help her come to her senses again, but he had no choice but to summon his demon to be able to face her, but to no avail, as Kinsei told him that she could resist his attacks and adapt to them very quickly, and that's when Cannon managed to hit him in the middle of his chest and he fell to the ground. They thought that she had succeeded in defeating the most powerful vampire in the world easily and effortlessly, and then they were surprised that Cannon went into a state of agitation for no reason, although she had not reached the maximum level yet, and Kinsei and his followers decided to retreat before their lives were in danger. Yukina forms a protective barrier around Kojo as she tries to wake him up after being knocked unconscious by Cannon's blow, and by the next day Sayaka is wiping out all the droids she encounters on her way into the facility after she arrives. Natsuki then appears out of nowhere and tells her that she now has conclusive evidence against Megacraft thanks to her, and decides to give her some information as a reward for her efforts, and tells her that she was able to confirm that Lopholia is on the island with Kojo and Yukina. And when Sayaka thinks about going to pick them up and take them back to Edogami Island, they find that the ice storm caused by the cannon has left a large part of the island and the beach frozen over in front of them. Meanwhile, Lopholia was inside the barrier that Yukina made with Kojo, and Yukina was worried that Kojo had not regained consciousness after a long time, so she told her that the cannon blade was still embedded in his body even though his wounds had healed, and they would not be able to remove the blade or heal the wound caused by it. Lopholia then decided to awaken her demon, as he is the only one who can help Kojo and save his life by nullifying the angel's artificial power. Yukina was surprised that she took off her clothes and told her that she can sexually stimulate him even while he is unconscious so that she can awaken his demon. Yukina was embarrassed and told her that there was no need to force her to do it, and decided to do it herself herself after feeling jealous of him. La Folia did not argue with her much, which made her suspect that she planned to force her to save him herself and not feel embarrassed in front of her. Then she took off her clothes and cut herself and approached him and gave him some of her blood through kissing, and when she felt him swallow her blood, she started trying to wake him up, so he pulled her back and kissed her again, and as time passed, he gradually began to regain consciousness through his instincts. After he regained full consciousness, he was surprised to find himself on top of her while she was unconscious, and La Folia was surprised that he was able to absorb the angel blade inside him and heal himself. Then she told him that Yukina did it for him, and when he asked her what happened to the place, she told him that Kanon lost control of herself and caused a tower of ice and froze part of the sea, and her consciousness is still active inside the tower, but they must save her as soon as possible before she loses herself. Sensing his desire to save his friend before it was too late, she approached him and ordered him, as the princess of the Digi Kingdom, to suck her blood. Meanwhile, Kanon was in her consciousness blaming herself for causing Koju's death, but was surprised to find him hugging her from behind and asking her to wait for him to come and save her. Meanwhile, Kinsei was trying to talk to her consciousness to tell her that there was no longer any connection to this world. Soon, Koju's demon emerged from the tower, and although he was surprised to see him alive, he was excited for Kanon to have another fight against him in order to reach the highest level of development. Yukina was furious and told him to stop thinking selfishly and try to imagine how Kanon, whom he raised as his daughter, would feel being treated like a tool. He told her that he never thought of her as a tool because her mother is his younger sister, which made Kojo feel angry again for using his niece as a lab rat to serve him. He told him that all he was thinking about was her happiness, and his ambition was to turn her into a superhuman being, and then nothing would be able to harm her. They realized that he had reached the point of obsession with his crazy project, and Koju accused him of imposing his dreams and ambitions on her without trying to hear her opinion and desires. They are interrupted by a sudden attack from Basler, who expresses her intention to finish them off so that she can sell the cannon and the other clones. Two masked girls fall from the sky, and Kinsei is surprised that she made more clones to make as much money as possible, and La Folia realizes that this is why they came after her in the first place, to use her royal blood in the cloning process. Basler tells her that she doesn't care about anything but money and vows to cut her to pieces and make as many artificial angel clones as she wants. Koju is furious and vows to ruin their plans and save everyone, and Yukina stands next to him with her spear ready to fight. Yukina decides to take care of the replicants while Koju rescues her. Yukina and Basler clash, and she is shocked when Yukina kicks her ass without using her weapon. When she looked at Lo, she saw that he had already been killed by the princess. Then Yukina ordered her to hand over the remote control of the replicas to her, and she felt irritated and continued to fight again. And when she directed her attack towards La Folia, she surprised everyone by using her special power for the first time and summoned her holy sword Veland and was able to block her attack with ease. Then she raised her sword to the sky and decided to punish Basler for her actions, and with a single attack, she crushed and tore her to the ground. Then Yukina took the controller and took control of the replicants, and they succeeded in controlling the situation on their side. In the meantime, Koju was standing in front of Kanon and felt that she was in pain inside and that she was in a confrontation within herself between herself and what she is now. Then she attacked him, but he blocked her with his barrier and then decided to end it as soon as possible and summoned one of his demons, which was in the form of a two-headed dragon, and he ordered his demon to attack her, and the two-headed dragon devoured her wings as Kinsei watched her fall from the sky before his eyes. When she touches the ground, Koju is surprised that she has turned to her full strength and will use everything she has to defeat him. Just as she was about to attack him, Yukina jumped on top of her and used the full power of her spear to break her power and free her from it. Koju took advantage of this and ordered his demon to devour all her magic to succeed in overcoming her power and finally save her. At sunrise, Koju saw Natsuki and Sayaka's ship heading towards them. Kanon regained consciousness and found everyone around her, and La Folia told her that Koju and Yukina had rescued her. She marveled at the similarity between them and asked her who she was, so she decided to tell her that she was her family without giving details, and she was happy to hear that word. Motoki interrogates Kinsei, and when he asks him why he wants to turn his daughter into an artificial weapon, he tells him that there should only be 3 vampire ancestors, and the appearance of the 4th ancestor means that a force like his project is necessary to save the world, even though he knows that no weapon can defeat the 4th ancestor. Motoki tells him that he will remain under the care of the island company from now on and will work for them for some time. Meanwhile, Koju learns that Natsuki has decided to be Kanon's guardian for the time being and take care of her. Yukina and Sayaka are surprised to see her kiss him goodbye, and after she leaves, Sayaka expresses her displeasure with her. Then he is surprised when Najista arrives and starts asking him excitedly about the nature of his relationship with La Folia and that she looks a lot like Kanon, and when he wonders why she is here, he finds that Asagi is with her and that she is the one who brought her, and he feels in trouble because all the girls are angry with him for kissing the princess. At the airport, La Folia was getting ready to return home and said goodbye to Sayaka when when she noticed on the announcements screen that the Halloween festival was coming up. So she asked her about it, and Sayaka told her that it was an annual festival held on the island at this time. Ophelia was excited to attend it and thought about postponing her trip, but Sayaka told her that her family would worry about her since she had postponed her trip twice before and decided to take her to the plane herself, but they were surprised to find the road blocked by debris, and Ophelia realized that there was still some excitement waiting for her on the island. Meanwhile, Koju and Yukina are struggling on the bullet train because of the crowds and can't stop bumping into each other due to the many visitors on the island for Halloween. Yukina tells him that previous ancestors believe that the gates to the spirit world opened at this time of year, which is why witches and spirits enter their world, and warns him not to lose control of his demons at this time of year, as it is the most destabilizing source of instability on the island. Then Yukina noticed that a girl was being harassed a few meters away from them, and she seemed to be her schoolmate. When she told Kojo, he felt angry and went towards her to beat the harasser, but the train suddenly stopped and everyone started to get out, so he lost his balance and almost fell, but the girl caught him just in time. When he turns around, it's a red-haired woman who thinks he's the molester, but after they all leave the station, she realizes it's Nagisa's brother and tells him it's her school teacher named Misaki. Then they were surprised to see Natsuki wearing a middle school uniform and wondered if she was the girl he saw on the train. She told them that she caught the real harasser and said that she deliberately disguised herself after hearing that several students had been harassed recently on this particular train. Before she left with Misaki, she told him that the Halloween festival would start soon and classes would resume after the weekend. He was surprised that she was telling him something he already knew, and he wondered at night why she was telling him that. In the meantime, the police were standing by, ready to confront something. Suddenly, large arms appeared from the depths of the sea and began attacking them without warning. It turned out to be two sister witches, Emma and Octavia, who had returned to the island after 10 years to wreak havoc on the island. Within minutes, the police were able to identify them, and the sisters quickly rewarded them for learning more information about them and crushed the entire force. Octavia felt that the island's guards were not strong enough for the organization they work for to need their powers to defeat them, so Emma told her that Natsuki lives on this island and is more dangerous than anything they will face during their time here. The next day, Koju and his friends went to the airport to meet his friend Yuma and told them that he is his childhood friend and has known him since they played on the same basketball team together, and Nagisa showed them a picture of him and found that he is so handsome that Koju is not fit to be his friend. While he was talking to them, Yuma jumped down the stairs, and when she fell into his arms, everyone was shocked that she was a girl. Then Koju introduced his friends to her and sarcastically described Asaji and Motoki as pedestrians. After that, they all went to visit the museum and started wandering around inside and taking pictures with statues and ancient relics. Then they went to lunch at a restaurant, and Yuma almost exposed him with an old situation that happened to him as a child, but he stopped her. Then they went to one of the high-rise towers to admire the island from above, and Koju remembered that Yukina is afraid of heights, but she tried to pretend that she was fine so as not to spoil the atmosphere, and told him that she was just worried about the glass floor. Then Yuma approached him and asked him if Yukina was his girlfriend. He told her that she was his sister's schoolmate and nothing more. She told him that she was staring at him all the time in the restaurant, and he told her that their relationship was not like that. And then he received a call from Sayaka and was surprised when he heard La Folia's voice, and they told him that they were stuck in the subflute area after drifting from the airport to there somehow and could not get out of the gate as they kept moving from one place to another. Meanwhile, Asaji and Motoki received calls that made them leave the tower in a hurry. Then Koju noticed Astarte coming to tell them that she had lost all contact with Natsuki this morning. She then said that Natsuki had given her advance orders in case this happened to prioritize protecting the cannon, and when Koju realized that he had forgotten Sayaka on the line, he asked her to wait for a while, but he was surprised that the call had already ended and felt that something was wrong. In the evening, after everyone returned home, Koju called Yukina to check on Cannon's situation with her and apologized for involving her in protecting her from danger, but she told him that they had to be careful not to get Nagisa and Yuma involved. After he ended his call, Yuma approached him and told him that sometimes she felt as if he and Yukina smelled exactly the same and justified it by feeling that they were very close to each other. Then he went to take a shower in his bathroom, wondering about her words, and as soon as he walked through the bathroom door, he found himself inside Yukina's bathroom with Cannon and Astarte washing up in front of him. A lot of question marks appeared on his face, but he left quickly, then went to Yukina's house and told her what happened to him and apologized for accidentally peeking, but somehow he found that his bathroom was connected to hers. Yukina felt strange and thought that maybe the island was experiencing some space interference, but it was no coincidence when it coincided with what happened to Natsuki and Sayaka, and decided that they should slow down and not wander outside without being careful to see what would happen in the future. When he returned home, he went to the kitchen to drink some water, then panicked when he noticed Yuma's voice coming from behind, causing him to drop the glass of water and break it on the floor, and while he was collecting the glass, he accidentally cut himself. Yuma licked licks his wound, then administers first aid, tapes his finger with medical tape, and tells him that it reminds her of the past when he used to get hurt all the time, so she carries a first aid kit with her wherever she goes. She told him it was a witch's costume she wanted to wear to a party tomorrow and was trying it on. He told her it looked good on her. She asked him if she was no longer human, would he be okay with it, and he told her he had plenty of non-human friends. Then she approached him during the countdown to the start of the festival, and Koju felt embarrassed when he realized that she intended to kiss him, and after she did, a ghost of a huge armored body appeared behind her. Then Koju did not feel himself as he lost consciousness completely after her kiss. Then he woke up the next morning and thought it was just a dream, but he felt strange about himself and rushed to the bathroom and was shocked when he saw himself in the mirror and found that he had somehow transferred into Yuma's body. Koju went to Yukina's room and thought of a way to introduce himself to her, and she was dealing with him spontaneously because she sees Yuma in front of her, and he was authorized to enter and see her in any clothes. He found that Yukina and the others were trying on Halloween costumes, so he had to tell them directly that he was Kojo but in Yuma's body, but they did not realize it at first glance. Meanwhile, Asadi was at the company checking the system, and Mo Wei told her that he had received more than 70 complaints about the roads and about 160 new reports of car navigation system malfunctions, so Asadi was frustrated when she found that all the GPS systems were out of order. A strange logo of a tank driver appeared on the screens, but she soon realized it was one of her colleagues who had been kicked off the servers like her, and told him that she felt as if there was something wrong in space around the island. Mo Wei then told her that there was a report of something similar happening 10 years ago, right around the time of the Dark Bible incident, and that it had something to do with the witch Materia, head of a criminal organization called the Library. He told her that 2 members of this organization were spotted breaking into the island 2 days ago. On the other side, Yukina and the others were questioning Koju to see if his claim was true, and Yukina realized that he had forgotten the name of the cat toy they had won in the cash game, as he was a careless person in her eyes. She then asked him where his body was that Yuma was supposed to be in, and he told them exactly what happened after he left his house and saw a blue ghost while Yuma was kissing him, at which point Yukina got angry and kicked his ass with her spear. Sayaka woke up and found La Folia next to her on a bed and was horrified to find that they were completely naked. She wondered what happened and how they ended up in this room, and told her that they kept drifting to random places in the space of the island until they ended up here. She realized that someone had messed up the space around the entire island and caused a huge mess, and started to wonder what the culprit was up to. On the other side, Koju returned with the others to his house and did not find Yuma or Nagisa, but when he saw that his sister had made breakfast before leaving, he realized that she had not been kidnapped, but he was worried because she was not answering the phone. Yukina tells him that Yuma was after his body for some reason, being a 4th ancestor. He wondered if magic could affect him that much. She said that magic cannot affect a divine curse, and the most likely possibility is that she distorted space and took his body by replacing their senses together, and he was amazed when she told him that Yuma is a witch of the same type as Natsuki, as controlling space and replacing bodies are abilities that a normal human cannot possess. At that time, Emma and Octavia were sitting watching what Yuma the Blue Witch was doing when they noticed someone around the place, and when they attacked him, they were surprised that he was able to easily block them, and then it turned out to be Dimitri. When he approached them, he found a magical book nearby surrounded by a large aura of magic, and realized that it was the cause of the chaos on the island, and concluded that they were looking for some kind of treasure sealed inside the island. Octavia almost attacks him with one of her magic books, but Yuma stops her just in time. Dimitri thinks it's Koju at first glance, but she tells him it's Yuma, the daughter of Materia's witch Aya. In the meantime, Asadi quickly reworked the Gigafolt network's backdrop and performed a high-precision spatial scan to continuously update the database throughout the day to help solve some traffic issues, and then decided to take a nap. Yukina and the others were having a great time wandering the streets and shops and eating special Halloween treats, while Koju was sitting around not knowing where his original body was and what it was doing, and feeling irritated at the idea that they were wandering around and ignoring Yuma's purpose in taking his body and what she was planning to do with it. Yukina tells him to calm down and tells him that she can easily break Yuma's magic with her spear, but the only problem is that it will have a strong effect on the host body, which in this case is his body. Everyone then told him that they were interested in him returning to his original body, and he felt grateful for their help. Then he felt like using the restroom, and when he asked Yukina about how girls use the restroom, she was furious and insisted on not letting him use the restroom and see Yuma's body, even though he naturally felt the need to do so. Meanwhile, Dimitri learns that Yuma has borrowed Koju's body to break out of the Demon Zone prison barrier and seek to free her mother. She tells him that she knows he wants to face a strong opponent and will fulfill his request once she can free her mother Aya. Kojo felt a wave of his power flowing through him and rushed out with Yukina, but as soon as he opened the door to the cafe, they found themselves transported to another location. On the other side of the island, troops and guards surrounded Yuma and the sisters and ordered her to surrender and leave immediately. Octavia used her book to fire her magic spells at the helicopter, sisters, attacking them and blocking their attacks at the same time. Koju and Yukina, on the other hand, arrived at the scene and were surprised by the helicopters raining down on them, so they rushed into the tower, but when they passed through the gate, they found themselves inside a women's locker room. Kojo feels angry and doesn't know what to do to get out of this situation. Then he receives a message from Asagi saying that the navigation system uses space distortion to determine the shortest route to the desired destination. Meanwhile, it turns out that Mogwai sent the message to him in agreement with Motoki, who hoped that Koju would arrive in time before Yuma found the prison barrier. Koju and Yukina have no choice but to follow the directions to reach their destination. On their way to Yuma's place, Koju remembers their first meeting when he was trying to retrieve Nagisa's hat near the hill and uses her to help him. He reaches the top of the tower and Yuma admires him for always coming at the right time. Koju asks her to return his body and she tells him that she will as soon as she finishes her work, as she is looking for the prison barrier to break it. Then Koju is surprised to find Dimitri with them in the same place, while Yukina realizes that she used his body because she needs tremendous magical power to be able to break the barrier. Dimitri tells them that he is waiting for her to open the prison barrier to release the most evil criminals all at once, which he thinks is a fun idea and will give him fun for a while. And he tells them that he will take responsibility and eliminate them all, and quickly disappeared from sight quietly. Octavia had tied them up with magical arms and thought about ripping off Yukina's limbs in one go, but was surprised by an attack that caused Yukina's arms to be torn off by La Folia and Sayaka after they finally managed to get to the destination. Sayaka was shocked to learn that Koju was now in a girl's body and could not return to his original body. Then they found the prison barrier starting to appear, and then Kensei appeared behind them after La Folia asked for his temporary release because they needed him in this situation, especially since he helped them move to the place thanks to his magic. When Yuma succeeds in finding the prison, she decides to leave after burning her magic book. La Folia wants to follow her, but Kensei tells her that all he can do is open a portal near the prison barrier, so she decides to let Koju and Yukina follow her while she takes care of the witch sisters. They go through Kensei's portal right to the prison barrier and meet Yuma on the way, who admires that he has so many good friends to help him. He tells her that he considers her one of his friends after all, and she asks him if he will consider her a friend even after knowing that she is just a tool born for the purpose of destroying the prison barrier and freeing her mother. She then begins to tell them about her past and that she is basically a child experimenter who was forced to grow at an accelerated rate. Her mother then programmed her to become a powerful witch so that she could destroy the prison barrier and free her. Kojo suspects that his initial meeting with her was part of her mother's plan, but she denies it and says that meeting him was the only thing she decided for herself. She then added that her original plan was to sacrifice the 100,000 citizens of the island in exchange for breaking the prison seal, but the organization changed the plan after discovering that Koju possessed the power of the fourth ancestor of vampires. Then they were surprised when they saw that she could summon his demons. She said that she did not take away his ability to control demons, but she manipulated time to summon him at a time when he used it in the past. Then the demon destroyed the prison barrier, and her blue ghost quickly lost control of the demon, and Koju's body suffered some damage. Yuma then headed towards the prison, followed by Koju and Yukina, and realized upon entering that the prison hadn't been opened yet despite the ceiling barrier being broken, and were shocked to find that the key to the prison was the Void Witch Natsuki herself. Meanwhile, Sayaka and La Folia were facing the sisters and noticed that the number of arms was not decreasing no matter how many they cut off, while the sisters were enjoying themselves and decided it was time to finish them off. Yuma, on the other hand, said that Natsuki is the jailer, the door and the key to the prison, and the name of the prison is derived from the technique she uses to seal magical criminals, and no one else is able to do it. Koju refuses to believe it and says that she works as a teacher at his school. She tells him that the Natsuki he knows is just an illusion created by her magic, a dream of a sad little girl, and that if she gets rid of her, all the prisoners will be released. Koju asks her what she expects to happen after she frees her mother, and that she is wrong if she thinks she will praise her, but that she will abandon her as she did with the book after she finished using it. She confesses that she knows she feels worthless after accomplishing the mission, but at the same time, she can't disobey the order she was given as a child, and that her entire life is meaningless because she has nothing. He told her that she was wrong because she has it, and he recognizes her existence and her right to live a normal life, and asked her to stop obeying something as silly as her mother's programming. She felt grateful that he tried to encourage her with some words, and decided to continue with what she was going to do. And then she projected her blue ghost to finish off Natsuki, but Yukina blocked it with her spear, while Sayaka and the princess were still resisting the sisters' endless magic, until La Folia got the idea that the arms the sisters were using were plants, not mollusks. Remembering the Ashdown Forest incident that the sisters had caused in the past, and that perhaps this power belonged to a demon guardian created from the trees of that forest, they decided to focus their attack on the sisters as the roots of these arms. Then they each used the power of their weapons to turn the roles in their favor as the sisters were surrounded by the flames of Sayaka's arrows, and their attack soon succeeded in breaking their magic and eliminating the branches. And on the other side, Yukina was facing the Blue Knight. When Yuma noticed the power of her deadly weapon, she realized that she could kill Koju at any time, and she should have done it a long time ago, but she didn't because he seduced her. So Yukina felt embarrassed and denied it, then got close enough to her and pointed her spear blade at her neck. Yuma used her magic to move from place to place and said that she didn't have to fight her face to face and caused part of the ceiling of the prison to be destroyed to prevent her from reaching Natsuki, but Koju managed to save her just in time. Yuma then began to feel pain all over her body inside Koju, and Yukina realized that her body was reaching its limit, while Koju found her body bleeding from debris hitting his head, and although Yukina tried to stop her, she insisted on continuing to finish her mission and break free. She had no choice but to use force and summon the full power of the spear. Just before she was about to plunge it into Koju's body, she stopped at the last moment and Yuma's ghost struck a powerful blow at her. Yuma was surprised at her retreat as she was about to finish her off and save Natsuki, and she realized that the reason for her retreat was because she suspected that Koju might not come back to life, and she realized that it was because of her suspicion. Koju supported her and helped her gather her courage and vowed to Yuma that they would defeat her and get his body back. Then he took the spear from her and lunged at her, but she dodged it before he could plant it. He threw it hard at her, and she used the blue spectrum to take the damage instead, thinking that the spear didn't work against her guardian. But Yukina jumped towards him and delivered a knockout kick that destroyed the spectrum and planted the spear inside Koju's body. And after receiving enough damage to neutralize its power, she rushed towards him and was relieved to find that he had finally returned to his body and was still alive. In the meantime, the sisters were arrested and taken away by the police. La Folia said that she was able to communicate with her guards and would leave the island in 15 minutes, then told Sayaka that by leaving, she would be free of her guards and could enjoy Halloween freely. Koju, on the other hand, was still in great pain in his body despite Yukina deliberately avoiding stabbing him in the heart. Remembering Yuma, he rushed over to check on her and found her sitting with her mouth open, shocked that she had failed in the only mission she had to live for. But he tells her that she did not fail, but that she is finally free and can live freely, and she feels happy for the first time in her life. Then they are surprised that Natsuki is awake and aware of everything around her, and she tells them that she was trying to preserve her strength until she received a violent attack from the Koju demon. Then she asks Yuma what she intends to do and decided that she will stop trying to achieve her goal since she no longer has a reason to break the prison barrier after being freed from her duty. Koju and Yukina are surprised to find Yuma drifting to another place outside the prison thanks to Natsuki's power, and they soon find Yuma has fallen, and when they think she is the one who transported them out of the prison, she tells them that Natsuki did it, and that's when they notice that the prison barrier has fully appeared near them. Meanwhile, Asaji was wandering the streets, feeling exhausted because she had slept for so long, and Moe suggested that she go back to the office and stay inside for a while longer, since an unrecorded unknown area had appeared in the waters of the northern region, and he felt bad about it. Feeling irritated that he's talking about feelings and he's just an AI program, she hangs up on him, then meets a mysterious man in a pumpkin mask who gives her some candy, and is surprised when he asks her not to be separated from her daughter, when she looks behind her and sees a little girl clutching the hem of her skirt. On the other hand, Koju and Yukina are shocked when Yuma's mother Aya appears in front of them after being freed from prison and tells them that the prison barrier actually appears when Natsuki wakes up from her eternal dream. When they marveled at the striking resemblance between her and her daughter, she told them that she was a clone of her, created during the process of virgin reproduction to break the seal of the prison barrier, and then decided to regain the power she had been given and forcibly taken away by the Blue Knight. Then Yukina realized that Yuma's life was at stake. According to her words, the Blue Knight is a part of her body and was acquired by giving up her humanity. Koju was furious that she considered her daughter a mere puppet that she could do whatever she wanted with, and a powerful aura appeared around him from the power of his demon, but he felt a prick where Yukina's spear had been. Aya realizes that he intends to use the power and warns him that if he attacks her, the prison barrier will take the damage, which means that the damage will extend to Natsuki, and they are surprised when she tells them that she used black magic to put a curse on her and steal her memories, and that she is unable to use magic. Before they can realize anything, they find that all the prisoners have been freed and want to help Aya find and dispose of Natsuki, who has already escaped, while she is surprised that only 6 of them were able to get out of the prison. A prisoner named Shura tells her that the criminals with magic and low stamina are back inside the prison, and she realizes that they must eliminate Natsuki to free everyone inside the prison. Koju was angered by their words and vowed not to let them carry out their plans, which made Shura so angry that he jumped towards him to attack him, but he was surprised that Yukina blocked his attack and decided to use all his strength to crush them both. However, he was quickly attacked by Sayaka, who used her bow and arrow to rain down magical arrows on them and then told them to get on the motorcycle behind her to escape from the place. Yuma, a criminal working for the library organization, was told that she was just a girl who had been abused by her mother, and Yukina told her that they had to find Natsuki and keep keep her safe before the prisoners got their hands on her. Kojo thinks about treating Yuma and decides to use someone who can heal her as soon as possible, his mother Maimori. Meanwhile, Asagi picks up the girl who has been clinging to her all the way and they go to a cafe for dessert. Asagi finds that the girl doesn't remember anything about her life and keeps calling her mom. When she asks her what her name is, she tells her that she's called Asagi, so she suspects that she might be her daughter from the future and came through time travel or something like that. I asked her if she knew a woman named Natsuki and was surprised that as soon as she said her name, the child started crying, so I asked her to calm down and decided to call her Sana until she remembered her real name. Kojo and the others then headed to the NER research laboratory, known as one of the most prominent industrial magic complexes in the world, and Kojo told them that his mother was the head researcher in the medical department, and when the bell rang, they all panicked when she opened the door wearing a Halloween mask. Then she was surprised that her son came to her with 3 girls, one of whom was unconscious. She thought that Yukina or Sayaka was his girlfriend and began to anticipate events with her overly enthusiastic style. When they entered the house, Maimori began to examine Yuma's wounds. Kojo was surprised to see Nagisa inside the lab, and she told him that their mother had invited her to choose a Halloween costume together. Then she noticed that Yuma was injured, and she wondered about the presence of Sayaka, who in her opinion is a naughty girl who likes to pick fights with anyone she sees, and she was surprised when Kojo asked her to help keep Nagisa busy for a while. And once Nagisa pulls her inside, Maimori wonders why Yuma is losing so much blood since her wound isn't deep enough. Realizing from the examination that her guardian had been taken away from her, causing her power to leak out of her spiritual gap, and that it could kill her if they couldn't save her soon, she decided to take her to the lab and asked Yukina to help her carry her, telling Kojo that men are not allowed in her lab and whispering for him to administer first aid to himself. Kojo went to the room upstairs and was surprised when Sayaka walked in, furious that she had been framed for spending time with Nagisa, and told him that she had to cast a sleeping charm on her so that she wouldn't wake up until the next morning after being nervous about his sister's ignorance of his true identity. When she noticed his wound, she approached him and wondered if his mother knew his identity. He said that he was trying to hide it from her as much as possible so that she wouldn't examine him. Then she wondered that his wound didn't heal despite his vampiric ability to heal himself, and she thought that Yukina's spear couldn't cancel his ability to heal. Then she felt embarrassed and decided to let him drink some of her blood, so she lay down on her bed to stimulate him sexually. Yukina entered the room and was surprised to see their situation in the room, so she felt angry and told him that she had come to tell him about Yuma's current situation. They were confused and tried to convince her that it is not what it seems, and suddenly Kojo felt weak and fell to the ground, helpless and unable to move until he gradually lost consciousness. Meanwhile, Asagi and Sana were enjoying their time celebrating Halloween while one of the prisoners was watching them, and it turned out that Sana is Natsuki's teacher somehow, and he kept watching them until he was sure that he had found his target. While Aya is thinking about what to do with the island and turning it into her own world, she is joined by 2 guards of the organization who want to accompany her. When she refuses and tells them that she has no business with them at the moment, they say that they have orders to eliminate her and collect the dark magic she took 10 years ago if she does not accompany her. But without realizing it, Aya burns them with black magic and lets it consume her. Meanwhile, Kojo was enjoying his pizza and Yukina and Sayaka were surprised that he collapsed and fainted just because of hunger. He said he didn't know that Yuma hadn't eaten anything throughout the day since she had been using his body. When he asked about Yuma's current condition, Yukina told him that his mother was able to heal her wounds, but they couldn't guess when she would regain consciousness again, and Kojo felt frustrated that a lab the size of NAR wasn't enough to fully heal her. Yukina thought that the only hope of curing her was to rely on a magical ability as powerful as Aya's, and the first person who came to mind was Natsuki, even though she was missing and had lost her magical power, but they decided to search for her and find her before the organization's hands could reach her. Yukina then noticed that she saw a girl who looked like Asagi on TV while covering the Halloween festivities holding the hand of a little girl who looked very much like Natsuki, and she remembered that Aya had told them that her black magic had stolen the time that Natsuki had lived up until then, making it logical for her body to return to where she was when she was a child. Asagi then receives a call from Kojo and is surprised to learn that there is a little girl with her. She tells him that she is lost and for some reason this girl is attached to her and does not remember her name. Then she is surprised by the old wizard approaching them with the intention of taking Natsuki, so she has no choice but to run away. She asks Mogwai to analyze the psychopath's data and he tells her that his name is Jellica, a monster who has a fire spirit implanted in his body to help eliminate enemies effectively and was arrested 6 years ago for trying to break into the island and destroy its facilities. She asks Mogwai to guide her to the exit after seeing the flame approaching them. While running, Natsuki tripped and fell on her face. Before Jellica reached them, she closed a portal between them, but Asagi was surprised that he melted it with his flame. Jellica kept chasing them until he was surprised by the rush of sewage towards him. Asagi thought she had succeeded in getting rid of him by manipulating the direction of the water stream and diverting it towards him, and when she came out on the roof, she found him appearing from the asphalt, burning with excitement because he had not chased a difficult prey in a long time. As he approached her, Astarte appeared out of nowhere and used her demon to attack him. He found himself surrounded by the police force and felt angry, but when he tried to attack Astarte, he was shocked by her ability to devour his spiritual energy until he was captured and sent back to prison. Astarte notices that the little girl with Asagi has biological characteristics that match Natsuki at a high rate. She tells her that she doesn't have a clear explanation as she doesn't know who she is, but then a mysterious woman named Gigliola appears and tells them that this child is the Natsuki they are looking for. Meanwhile, a mysterious man named Mega walks up to where Ayat is, and she immediately realizes that he is one of the prisoners who escaped from the barrier. He tells her that he is just a failed magician who doesn't even deserve the title, and she is surprised to find that he knows about her stealing Natsuki's memories, which contain the location of the barrier key and the decryption program, and asks her what she plans to do while the other prisoners are busy looking for Natsuki. Kojo, on the other hand, was irritated by the traffic jam, and the motorcycle broke down until they found a bicycle near them, so Yukina broke the lock, gave him some of her blood, and asked him to follow Asagi, with Sayaka and her to follow him later. Meanwhile, Asagi recognizes Gigliola, a singer at the Cardis Theater, and when she asks her why she's on the island, she tells her that she was transferred after causing trouble in the Spanish concentration camp. Astarte felt a strange aura emanating from her and advised Asagi to flee immediately, so Gigliola decided to use force, and as soon as she took out her magic whip and used it, Asagi was surprised that the police started shooting at Astarte for no reason. Astarte told her that they were under the control of a demon and told her to run away. She realized that Gigliola's real power is her ability to control anyone's mind with her magic whip, and as she was about to escape, Gigliola released an army of mosquitoes to attack her, but Dimitri saved her just in time and used his power to destroy the mosquitoes. Gigliola was surprised by his presence and his intention to intercept her. He told her that this was his role as ambassador to the island according to the sacred treaty, and his job was to eliminate all criminals. He then summoned his demon dragon to eliminate her followers, which she controlled with a whip. When she summoned the mosquito army again, she was surprised that he could easily wipe them out with his ability to summon demonic snakes, and then command them to attack her and tear her body apart. Hoju joins them and tells Dimitri to stop overreacting to Gigliola, but she is soon tied up and sent to prison again. Dimitri expresses his pleasure at seeing such exciting events thanks to Kojo. Kojo ignored him and went to Asagi and asked her why Natsuki was with her. Dimitri realized that all the prisoners were after her to get rid of her. Kojo felt that he had hidden intentions towards her and warned him that he would deal with him himself, not caring about Asagi discovering his identity as a vampire. He was surprised when Dimitri offered to keep Natsuki on his ship and protect her from the attack of the other prisoners instead of endangering the island and its inhabitants again. He was convinced of his point of view and accepted the offer, but Asagi was surprised by everything that was happening around her and how Kojo could know someone like Dimitri, and decided to leave Natsuki with them on the condition that she accompany them wherever they go. Meanwhile, Aya prepares to confront Miga after learning that he is a member of the Lion King organization, but he easily neutralizes her demon and breaks his sword, then admires her attempt to restore the black magic that Natsuki sealed through her memory, telling him that she is also able to reactivate all black magic spells simultaneously, and that the entire Sekai school is under the control of dark magic. On the other hand, Kojo continues to receive reprimands from Sayaka for taking Asagi and Natsuki to Dimitri's ship. She tells him that the ship is off the island and she and Yukina can't get on it, but he tells her that there is no other safer option for him, so Yukina tells him not to complicate things further and that she and Sayaka will try to get as close to them as possible. After he ended his call with them, he went inside the ship and met one of Dimitri's relatives named Voltisola, who told him that he had prepared new clothes for him in case he wanted to change his shabby clothes. Then Kojo noticed that someone was staring at them from afar with angry looks, and Voltisola told him that it was Prince Tobias, one of the noblemen of the warlord's sovereignty. Kojo wondered why he was looking at him, and Voltisola said that he was jealous of Dimitri's concern for him all the time, so Kojo decided to ignore it and went to wash in the ship's bathroom, thinking about saving Yuma as soon as possible and helping her regain her abilities again. Then he was surprised when a group of girls joined him while wearing swimsuits and told him that they were Dimitri's maids and offered to help him wash. Kojo gets suspicious and tells them that maids are not meant to help people wash up. Realizing that he has figured them out, they tell him that they are actually hostages who have been kidnapped by Dimitri and are basically the daughters of kings and politicians from countries around his homeland. They then told him that they had decided to take revenge on the country that sold them and didn't think to take them back from him, and the first step was to marry those who belonged to the fourth ancestor in an indirect request to have sex with him. Kojo felt suspicious of them and suspected that it might be a trap by Dimitri. When he asked them, they did not deny it and asked him to tell them if he changed his mind about having a descendant. After they left, he was surprised that Asagi and Natsuki joined him. He felt embarrassed and decided started to leave the bathroom. Asaji asked him to tell her what he had been hiding from her for a long time before he left. He thought she suspected he was a vampire, but he was surprised when she asked him if he was gay because of his friendly relationship with Dimitri for no logical reason.
Why are you gay?
Then she noticed that he had a wound in the center of his chest and got up without paying attention to her towel, making her fall off her body. Kojo saw her breasts clearly and told her that he had reached his limit before the blood rushed out of his nose like a waterfall and he fell unconscious. He regained consciousness in the room and noticed Asaji taking care of Natsuki as if she were her mother. He admired how she looked in her yukata and suggested that she wear such modest clothing. She threw her shoes at him and told him that he was the one who told her to pay more attention to her appearance. Then they were surprised when Natsuki woke up and acted suspiciously, so Koju thought she had regained her memories and told him that she had turned into Natsuki's backup. Meanwhile, Sayaka and Yukina arrive at the nearest point to the ship, and Sayaka sees through her shikigami that Koju is staying with Asaji in one room with a double bed, so Yukina suspects that there is someone nearby who turns out to be Dimitri. She asks him if he's deliberately trying to get Koju and Asaji closer to each other and why he's making a sacrifice to him. He tells her that he thought it would be interesting and then asks her if she knows the truth about the power of the fourth ancestor and that if Koju turns into a full-fledged vampire it would be fun to fight and devour him. Realizing that he was planning to hurt Koju, Yukina pointed her spear at him, but he told her that it wouldn't happen for a long time and that Koju wasn't his main guest today, so she found that he was holding a prisoner from the prison barrier inside his ship. Koju and Asaji wonder if Natsuki can restore her memories through the backup, but she tells him that it's impossible as she still lacks her magical power and suggests he wait 10 years until she grows to her true size. He realized that the only way to restore everything was to destroy Aya's dark magic. Then they received a call from Mogwai, who told them that there is a strange aura surrounding the Seikai school that seems to affect the ability to use magic and cancel it out from the main structure of the island. Natsuki tells them that an intruder is trying to break into the ship. Before Koju realizes it, they are surprised to find that someone has kicked Dimitri's ass and thrown him away. When they looked outside, they saw a mysterious figure standing with a huge sword over his shoulder. Natsuki was able to analyze his data and told him that his name was Brute, a former mercenary working for the Church of Western Europe, and he began to approach them when he saw Natsuki. Koju has no choice but to fight and use his strength in the presence of Asaji, but before he can do anything, Dimitri summons his demon and asks him not to interfere in this fight as she feels the pleasure of facing an opponent as strong as him. Koju was surprised when Brute managed to cut off his dragon's head with his sword, but that didn't stop Dimitri from continuing to attack him and summon his dragons. On the other side, Shura approached Yukina and Sayaka and vowed to regain his pride and pay her back. Sayaka decides to stand up to him in exchange for Yukina going after Koju and protecting him. On the other side, Koju tries to escape the ship as soon as possible before they are killed by Dimitri overusing his power until he meets Voltisola, who helps guide them to a shortcut outside the ship. After they managed to get out of the ship, they met Yukina, at which point the ship began to be destroyed and were surprised by the arrival of a mysterious girl driving a small tank who told them that her name was Lydiane and that she had come to take them away by order of Mogwai. Dimitri and Brute continue to fight and Brute is shocked when he sees one of Dimitri's giant demons. Dimitri decides to send him back to where he belongs when he gets tired of fighting him, and the rest of them realize that the fight is over. Lydiane tells them to hurry up and leave the place as the power of dark magic to take away magical abilities is spreading around the island, so Koju decides to take Natsuki with him while Asaji goes with her to take care of the island. On the other side, the fight between Sayaka and Shura is still going on, and just as he is about to use his windstorm, she gets the idea to use it against him and throws one of her arrows into the wind and manages to stun him until he is tied up and sent back to prison. Sayaka almost faints, but Koju catches her just in time and realizes that the others are with him. He tells her that they have managed to find Natsuki and will protect her until she regains her powers and helps them heal Yuma. When to their surprise, Aya appears in front of them, mocking their plans. Sayaka was surprised to find that her sword had lost its magical power, and when Aya was about to attack her, Koju blocked her by summoning his demon, but they were shocked to find that she had the power to take away his power, and then she told them that the island would be her world from now on. Yukina is furious and rushes towards her to attack her, but Aya disappears in a flash and makes his demon plunge his sword into Kojo's chest, then reappears next to Natsuki, then traps Yukina in her preset trap and disappears after kidnapping the two girls, and Koju realizes that she has been after Yukina all this time and not Natsuki. Natsuki. Yukina watched the confrontation between Aya and Natsuki in the past and thought it was a dream in Natsuki's mind. But to her surprise, she was suddenly transported into a classroom, and Aya told her that maybe everything that is happening now is a dream in her own mind. Meanwhile, Sayaka was looking for some first aid to treat Koju's wound and was in a state of panic and wished she could use her magic in this situation. He asked her to calm down and told her that the dark magic has cancelled all magical abilities on the island, and it is only a matter of time before the island is drowned. Sayaka notices that his wound is not healing on its own and is still losing a lot of blood, so she decides to give him some of her own blood, but they are surprised to see Yuma in front of them and wonder how she manages to move while suffering serious injuries, so she tells them that she still has enough magic to find them. In the meantime, Yukina is lost in her own thoughts and subconscious as she sees Koju and Sayaka joining her in class and notices that he's carrying a gym bag, so she thinks he's back to playing basketball again. In time, Yukina realizes that she is dreaming and that this is all just a figment of her imagination, and when she summons her spear, she is brought back to reality. Aya shows her that she can turn dreams into reality with her power and tells her that she removed all the powers around the island except her own to prove that witches are not as cursed as everyone thinks they are. Yuma, on the other hand, cuts herself with Sayaka's sword and approaches Kojo to give him some of her blood so that he can use her magic to stop her mother since she is a clone of her. Once her blood was in Koju's mouth, he regained his vampire powers and drank as much of Yuma's blood as he could, then rushed over to Sayaka and took some of her blood, telling her that he wouldn't let anyone die, and suddenly he had a vision of Aurora asking him to put everything back where it started. Koju realizes that his fourth demon has been released after Yukina stabs him with her weapon and decides to summon him. Meanwhile, Motoki notices that he has used his demon and has turned the entire island into a fog where Aya cannot break immaterial objects. The girl with him, Koyomi, tells him that his friend can destroy the entire island whenever he wants now that he has shown the true power of the fourth ancestor. Aya, on the other hand, admires Yukina's spear and how it can break any opponent's magical power and wonders if Yukina is a human born in this world. She then explained that the reason she believes this world is cursed is because of the magical and supernatural powers of some beings, and that she believes in the hypothesis that all humans and their memories over thousands of years were created just 5 minutes ago by an unknown entity. Yukina tells her that it's just a hypothesis that can't be proven, so Aya decides to rebuild the world as she wants to prove the hypothesis. Yukina is shocked that she's willing to sacrifice hundreds of thousands of lives in order to prove her hypothesis. She told her that she was doing it to avenge those who had despised witches all these years and used them as tools. Then she was shocked when she felt magical powers close to her and saw Kojo summoning his third demon and breaking through her barrier and entering her world, as well as breaking the cages that Yukina and Natsuki were imprisoned in. She was surprised to learn that he had regained his power thanks to her daughter's blood and told her that he no longer cared about her goals, plans, or even that she was Yuma's mother and vowed to destroy her. She then joined Yukina's class and told them that they were still inside her world. Koju laughed at the idea that she intended to defeat them with ghosts of her own imagination and easily wiped them out with his demon. Then Yukina broke her protective barrier and began to feel uncomfortable with their abilities. She then used a spell to bind and immobilize Yukina, and when she decided to take away her memories with her demon, a golden guardian appeared to protect her and take the damage for her. They find that Natsuki has regained some of her magical abilities and tells Koju that she was able to regain some of her powers for a short time by drinking water mixed with the blood he bled in the bathroom. Aya was furious, but before she could do anything, Natsuki used her powers to break her control over Yuma's demon and bring it back to her, and Aya had no choice but to use all her powers and transform into her demonic form. Natsuki tells them that she is now unstoppable, but Yukina vows that they will be able to defeat her as her weapon has the power to restore the world to its original form. Koju summoned his lion demon to support Yukina's attack on her, and she was able to break her form and magic with one blow and restore the world as it was. And when Aya lost control of everything, Mega was able to get a mace to use as a weapon, and Koyomi wondered if he was using Aya all this time. He told her that leaving the weapon in this world was a mistake from the beginning, and now it is time to take it, and he wondered that she would not try to stop him from leaving. She told him that the Lion King organization will not suffer harm from his departure, and there is no way to stop him except by his death. So he left quietly while the island returned to normal. Koju and his companions managed to defeat Aya, and the sun rose a new day, and Natsuki fully regained her powers and memories. A few days later, a mysterious person breaks into Kensei's lab. When he eliminates the lab guards and goes to his office, he introduces himself and tells him that his name is Kyu, and that he has come to return the souvenir of his mistress that he took. When he uses his ability to turn his hand into a blade, Kensei realizes that he is the person who caused the destruction of the Adelard Monastery, and Kyu attacks him. At that time, Yukina was at home and heard a noise near the balcony and was surprised that Shikagiri managed to break through her barrier and leave an important message for her, after which she went with Koju and the others to eat ice cream at the shopping center and told him on their way that the Lion King organization contacted her to tell her that her weapon power would be banned for 4 days starting at midnight in 2 days, which would free her from her duty as his watchdog for several days. She then expressed her concern that she would be away from him for a while. He tried to comfort her and told her to have fun during the vacation period. When she entered a girl's clothing store with Nagisa and Kanon and stood waiting for them outside, Koju appeared in front of him and asked him if Kanon was his girlfriend. Then he tried to use his ability to catch him, but he was surprised that Koju was able to evade him. He realized that he was not human and told him that he intended to get rid of him in a discreet way, and then attacked him in front of the people inside the center until they reached the outdoor courtyard. Koju asks him if he wants to kidnap Kanon, and he replies that he intends to use her as a sacrifice to make up for what happened at Adelard Abbey 5 years ago. As he rushes towards him to attack him again, Yukina intercepts him with her spear and cuts off his arm. Yukina realizes that he is an alchemist and decides to retreat for the time being, since he doesn't stand a chance against a vampire and a Lion King agent at the same time. Koju was surprised by his sudden surrender, and when he wanted to follow him, a huge tree almost fell on him, but Yukina saved him just in time and wondered that Kao had turned a tree into metal. And when she asked him what was wrong with him, he told her that he mentioned something about what happened in the monastery 5 years ago. He decided to ask Natsuki about it, and when he went to her house, Astarte told him that she went to the police station, so he thought to ask her what most of her body was made of. When she told him that most of her body parts were made of alchemy, he wondered if she had any idea what alchemists were after. She told him that they seek to transcend human limitations and approach the divine to gain eternal life while maintaining their physical bodies, and Koju was shocked when she mentioned him as an example, as he is a human who gained vampire powers later in his life cycle. Then she added that an alchemist named Nene used the wise men blood she created to obtain an immortal body and unlimited magical power, and Koju found that she knew what happened at the Adelard Monastery 5 years ago. The next day he went to Asagi and asked her if she had any information about the incident at the monastery, but she didn't remember anything about it. When she searched the internet, she couldn't find any articles about it, so he decided to skip his afternoon class and go to the monastery. Then he noticed that Asagi was following him, and halfway there he was suddenly attacked by an unknown source. When he realized the situation, he pulled Asagi down to protect her from any danger. Then Natsuki appeared in front of them and admired his courage for skipping class to investigate the monastery. After scolding them, she tells them that Kensei was attacked 2 days ago and is now in critical condition in the hospital. When Koju describes his appearance to her, she realizes that he means Q and tells her that he met him yesterday and was trying to kidnap Kanon. She told him to keep it a secret and to go with the others to the training camp and keep an eye on Kanon, then decided to punish him and Asagi with extra classes today, with 3 times the intensity of the regular classes to make up for the truancy. Afterward, he left on his way home with Yukina, who was upset that he went to the monastery without telling her, and said that if he had to face Q again, he would endanger Asagi's life. She then asked him during boot camp to stay calm and not do anything rash and not to drink the blood of any other girl but her. Then it occurred to her to ask him for a favor before she left, and when he went with her to the destination, a street full of hotels, he thought she wanted to stay with him in a room alone for the night. But when they arrived, she asked him to close his eyes, and when he opened them, he suddenly found himself in front of the Lion King organization, and she told him that she had to do that to bypass the organization's secret barrier. When they entered the organization, they encountered a replica of Sayaka, and Koju thought at first glance that it was the real Sayaka and wondered why she was dressed as a maid, but a mysterious voice told them that this was a punishment for minions arrested for using equipment without permission. Then they turned around and found Yukari the cat standing on a high shelf. In the meantime, Q was showing a painting of his sleeping lady inside a metal plate to an important person and told him that when he transfers the consciousness of the person he wants inside the solid core, he will be able to merge with Wiseman's blood and retain a single self by replacing his body with metal. The person thought of using this power to take revenge on those who betrayed him at the company headquarters and told Kao that he intended to give him a special loyalty reward after the power became his. On the other hand, Koju was surprised when Yukina told him that Yukari was her teacher. After handing over the spear, Yukari tells her that she is now free from her duty as a watcher of the 4th ancestor and can live a normal life like a girl her age. Yukina asks her to let her continue her work as a watcher because she still feels anxious. Yukari realizes that Koju is the vampire of the 4th ancestor and tells him that she summoned him because she wanted to talk to him and express her gratitude for saving Aurora. Suddenly, Koju feels a strong headache as memories start to seep into his mind. Then he gets a call from Asagi asking him to help her find one of the earrings he got her for her birthday, as she went near the monastery to find the earring before dark, and he is confused when he realizes that she is near the monastery. In the meantime, Q was able to convince the agent to try Wiseman's blood and let her use his body. After he did so, a mummified image of Nina appeared, and the agent felt his body gradually being consumed, telling him that it was only a matter of time until he obtained immortality immortality after destroying it from within before Nina woke up. Before his men could do anything, Ku got rid of them in a flash, and by the time he devoured their master's body completely, Kyo felt triumphant that his plan had finally succeeded. On the other side, Koju was asking Asagi to leave immediately and give up the earring, and promised her that he would buy other earrings for her later. Then their conversation was interrupted by a sudden attack. Then she found that there was an explosion near her and emitted something like mercury, and Q noticed her presence and realized that he had been exposed, so he decided to get rid of her immediately and controlled the mercury to tear her body. But he thought she avoided the blow, while Asagi fainted next to the earring she was looking for. When Koju arrives in the forest and finds Asagi drowning in her own blood, he tries to wake her up in any way he can, but he can't control his powers and almost destroys the entire island. But Yukina reminds him that there are still people he loves living around him. Koju calms down and listens to Yukina and realizes that they have to act wisely to save Asagi. But Kyu soon appears in front of them, smiling, which angers Koju again, and they both attack him. Kao decides to use his original form and realizes that he is actually Wiseman's blood after being turned into a high-density goo and starts attacking them. So Koju summons his dragon demon to devour him and manages to settle the matter in his favor. Then he was surprised that Asagi was still alive. To his surprise, when she regained consciousness, she was not in pain, as if she had not been injured, and she seemed surprised by the blood on her clothes. In the evening, the police came to investigate the matter, and on their way home, Koju wanted to make sure Asagi was okay. Yukina suggested that they take her to the hospital to make sure she was okay. So Koju decided to take her to Memori, and Yukina had to leave to go to the organization and tell them what happened. After that, Koju returned home, and when his sister started complaining about how he forgot to bring what she asked him to bring, she was surprised that Asagi was with him, so she had to go buy milk herself. Asagi started washing up in the bathroom when she noticed a strange red spot on her chest and soon fainted in the bathroom. After a while, Koju was surprised when she came out and stood in front of him without clothes and started bleeding from his nose and asked her to hurry up and put something on. Then he found her using some magical ability to turn the flowers in the vase into a towel, which made him realize that something was wrong with her because she claimed the identity of a woman named Nina. Then he sat and listened to everything Nina said about Asagi's body, and she told him that the stone called the solid paralysis contains her body and is the controller of Wiseman's blood, a liquid metal that spreads itself and can be considered a living organism. He realized that her body mixed with the metal was contaminated by Q after he made a fake essence and Asagi was involved. Nina told him that all she could do when he attacked her was to cut away the tainted Wiseman's blood and then move inside her body to heal her wound before she died. Kojo felt grateful that she was the reason for saving his friend, and Nina marveled that he was an honest person despite being a vampire, so he asked her to stop calling him a vampire, and then he had to tell her that he caused the death of her student Q, but he was surprised when she told him that he was still alive. She then said that the contaminated blood left over from his body was still moving around and was proof that he was still alive and that he had turned into a monster. Meanwhile, Q sneaked into Natsuki's building, and once he transformed back into his human form, he was surprised to find a set of chains restricting his movement, and he realized that Natsuki had revealed something. She appears in front of him and starts questioning him about his pursuit of Kanon. He tells her that there are those who consider her an obstacle in their way, and that it is unfair that she is the only one who survived the tragedy that happened 5 years ago. Surprised that he turned into metal and evaded her chains, she decided to let Astarte take care of him, and then used her demon to beat him up before he could do anything and turned into a solid black stone. Natsuki picked it up and realized that it was an immortal body acquired through liquid metal. Koju wondered what Q's goal was. She said she had no idea and promised him that she would leave Asagi's body as soon as she got pure Wiseman blood. When Nagisa returned, Koju decided to hide it from her and asked Nina not to say anything unnecessary. But when they came out of the room, Yukina returned with her, and Koju and Nina tried to hide it from them as much as possible and started talking about what they were going to do when they went to the training camp. And when Nagisa mentioned the name Kanon, Nina eagerly asked her how she was feeling, and she told her that she had recently become more cheerful than usual and had made many friends. Q, on the other hand, vowed that he would have his chance later, when the false essence he had planted in the fugitive Wiseman's blood would have matured enough to transform on its own. The next day, Yukina and Nagisa began instructing Kojo before they left for the training camp. After they left, he heard screams coming from one of the rooms, so he rushed in and found Nina awake. When she asked why she was sleeping in his house, he realized that Asagi had returned to her body again and thought that something had happened between them while she could not remember, so he tried to convince her that nothing had happened between them and that he would explain what happened later. However, Nina soon reincarnated and told him that Wiseman's blood was starting to move. Meanwhile, the police force struggled with Q under Motoki's watchful eye and managed to control him, spraying him with ice until he was frozen and couldn't move any further. Just when they thought they had him under control, he appeared in human form, broke through the ice, and released the liquid metal. When the troops started shooting at him, he felt victorious, but Motoki Toki realized he was after the bullets and ordered the troops to stop firing. When he had enough bullets, he slammed his wand into the metal to awaken Wiseman and cause a huge explosion. When Koju and Nina arrived at the scene of the explosion, she realized that he had used radiation weapons. She tells Koju that Wiseman's blood was originally intended to create a complete, immortal, undead human being, and that when Wiseman wakes up in his full form, he can be considered an artificial god who seeks to destroy everything around him. Meanwhile, Yukina and Nagisa are on their way to the camp, and while Kanon is trying to see the dolphins through a magnifying glass, they feel a mysterious force flowing around them, and Yukina notices that something diving into the sea is approaching them at a tremendous speed. Within minutes, Kyo takes control of the ship after spilling a lot of blood and vows to recover the other half of his body with Wiseman's help. On the other side, Yukina gets the feeling that they are not alone on the ship and that Q is the source of the mysterious force she felt a few minutes ago. Meanwhile, Nina found traces of skeletons that Kao had eaten among the wreckage and the remains of his metal body, and said that she remembers everything clearly now about what happened in the monastery 5 years ago. Yukina, on the other hand, was looking for Q all over the ship until she met Kanon on the way and realized that she felt something disturbing around the ship as well, but it seemed familiar to her, and that's when they were surprised by his appearance. When Kanon sees him, she immediately remembers the man who attacked the monastery 5 years ago in order to take a powerful psychic as an offering. When she realizes that he is after her, she runs away so as not to endanger Yukina's life. He immediately follows her and Yukina rushes after them to prevent him from reaching her. On the other side, Nina decides to use the leftover blood to restore her body and abandon Asaji's body, but she can't fully restore it, and Kojo finds that she looks very much like Asaji. Then Natsuki joins them and tells them that she learned the whole story from Kensei after he regained consciousness. Surprised that the great alchemist Nina looks like Asaji and has fake breasts, Koju asks her to help him find Q before he succeeds in reviving Wiseman, and is surprised when she tells him that he's headed towards the ocean where the ship that transports Seikai School students to the Tokyo camp is, and realizes that he's after Kanon. Nina thought he might be after Yukina since she seems to be a powerful psychic to him, so he asked Natsuki to transport him on the ship with her ability and told her that Yukina doesn't have her spear at the moment, but she said she had arranged another transportation for him. He then finds out that the other transportation is a large airship with an engine and that it belongs to La Folia, and she tells him that it's the fastest transportation she can arrange for him. Before he enters it, he meets Yukari and Sayaka to give him Yukina's spear and asks him to return it to her. Before Koju heads inside the airship, La Folia wants to test his abilities and makes him pilot a model airplane so that he doesn't die halfway through. Meanwhile, Kanon comes to a dead end inside the ship and is trapped by Kojo. He was shocked when she told him that she remembered him and the moment he wiped out everyone in the monastery, and that she felt sorry for him after he was deceived. She then asked him what he wanted to accomplish by reviving Wiseman. He tells her that he wants to become human again by returning the half of his body that was eaten, and when she asks him about his life before he lost half of his body, he can't answer any of her questions and gets confused, so she tells him that Wiseman can't fulfill his wish because he wasn't human in the first place. Q was furious and rushed to attack her, but Yukina blocked him with an enchanted meteor iron knife, so he made several metal copies of it and told them that they had no chance against him and no way to escape either. Then Yukina was surprised to see Koju appear in front of her with his spear on his back, and then she found that there was a girl who looked like Asadi with him, and he told her that she was the great alchemist Nina. Nina then asked Q to surrender and hand over Wiseman's remains, telling him that he was never human and that he was a half-human being created by Wiseman himself, who cultivated the desire to become fully human to exploit him. She then tried to convince him to stop obeying Wiseman. Q dropped the skull he was holding to speak for him, and it turned out to belong to Wiseman. Nine was surprised that he woke up without having to use his own blood, and soon realized that he was not after Yukina or Kanon, but deliberately came all this way to get minerals from the seawater to help him regenerate himself faster. Wiseman then transformed into a huge metal creature and began to attack Kojo, who blocked it with his demon, but the attack still caused great damage to the ship, and Yukina was shocked when everyone around her disappeared and found Kojo transformed into a solid metal statue. Nina told her that he had turned the ship into a fog to protect it from the attack, and as a result he was unable to escape or dodge Wiseman's attack, and although he is cursed with immortality, he will not be able to return to life unless he dies. A mysterious girl approached him and kissed him to free him from the hardness of the metal, but Yukina realized that he did not recognize her as his master and became agitated, so she approached him and kissed him until blood flowed from her lips, and then Kojo began to drink some of her blood. Kojo vowed to put Nina out of her misery for 270 years by destroying this body and summoned 4 demons at once to confront Wiseman, while Yukina prepared to confront Ku, who still insisted on fighting even though he knew he was only being used. He tells her that he's afraid to stop being him and that the search for his truth and identity is what makes him live like a human. The two begin to clash, and Yukina uses the full full power of her spear to finish him off. When Kao realizes that he is finished, he also realizes that all he has been living for is a wish to become human, but he will never become human, and he quickly fades out of existence. On the other hand, Wiseman continued to show off his perfect form to Kojo, an imperfect being to him. Kojo told him that despite his power, he never used it to help others, and no one recognized him as the strongest being on Earth or the most complete. Kojo then decided to summon his newly awakened demon, Albus, in the form of a half-human woman who rushed towards Wiseman and clung to his neck. Wiseman was shocked to find his entire body disappearing under the shadow of Albus' aura, and Yukina noticed that the demon's power was to manipulate time. When she returned to Kojo, he fell into her arms from exhaustion, and she had no choice but to let him rest, patting his head the entire time. Afterward, Yukina woke up in her bed after having a disturbing dream with Kojo in which he seemed to be leaving her, and she was surprised that she was crying in her sleep after seeing him leave her and go on his way, and tried to remember what she was about to say in the dream to him. On her way to school with Kojo, she suddenly asked him what he would do if she had to go away. He was surprised at her question at first, and then told her that it would make some things easier for both of them, and she was offended by the idea that he would prefer not to have her with him. He tried to set the record straight and told her that he thought daily monitoring someone seemed like a lot of work for a girl like her, but she kept thinking about his words to her and that he should have found a better way to answer her question. After gym class, Misaki gave her a future plans questionnaire and asked her to distribute it to her classmates. When she went to change her clothes, she found that she hadn't thought about her future at all because she was too busy becoming a witch to fulfill her duty to the organization. A mysterious girl appears out of nowhere in the locker room and attacks her before she can do anything, and Yukina quickly loses consciousness. Meanwhile, Dimitri is surveying the extensive damage of unknown origin when Sayaka joins him. He asked her if she felt the same way about the dragon that supports the island's balance on the surface of the sea just below them, but Dimitri dismissed the idea, explaining that he had overthought it a bit, and Sayaka felt a mysterious force near them, and Dimitri realized his guess was correct. After that, Koju noticed Yukina's strange behavior, especially after he saw her and Motoki bumping into the glass door, so he approached her to ask if she was okay, and Motoki marveled at her behavior and the way she spoke to him as if she didn't know him. Koju took her away to ask her what happened to her in a day and night, and she seemed to have amnesia or something and didn't remember anything about being his observer, and then they were joined by Natsuki, who felt irritated by the way she had been talking to her recently, and when she hit her on the head she felt a strange feeling and then realized that something was wrong with her, as if she was getting to know them all over again. Koju noticed that her eyes had changed color, but she ran away and he immediately followed her. He realized that she was suffering from vampiric impulses and suspected that she might not be the Yukina he knew. He was surprised when the real Yukina appeared and thought she was just angry that a girl was imitating her, but she pointed her spear at them and decided to beat her up, so Koju suggested she listen to her motives first. Meanwhile, a black dragon with red eyes suddenly appears in the sky and disappears before anyone can see it. Motoki wonders if it's after Kojo, while Asaji notices Natsuki's disappearance and goes to take over the dragon and try to control it with her magic. When the fake Yukina saw the dragon, she told him to move away immediately, but before she could finish her sentence, the dragon stabbed her from behind, then grabbed Kojo and noticed that he was trying to absorb as much of his power as possible, so he pushed him away. Then Yukina approached him and noticed that his tail had the ability to teleport. She decided to follow the movements of his tail and attack him accordingly, and when he dodged her to attack Kojo, she decided to use the full power of her spear on him before he got him, but she was shocked that her spear shattered in front of the dragon's power, and then the fake Yukina regained consciousness and surprised Kojo with her ability to summon his demon lion in the form of a spear, and was able to destroy the dragon with one blow. After temporarily defeating it, she tells Kojo that she has also inherited the curse of immortality and has followed this magical beast to the island, and will not leave until she destroys it. Before he can ask her where she is going, Natsuki interrupts them and decides to take care of the fake Yukina, and asks him to take care of the real Yukina. He approached her and found her sitting sad and frustrated after her weapon was broken, and told her that they would be able to repair it. She said that this time is completely different as the essence of the spear itself was shattered, and felt that the fake Yukina was right when she told her that pretending to be tough would make her fragile and cause her to destroy herself and those around her. Meanwhile, Dimitri and Sayaka were watching the situation from afar, which made him feel excited about what had just happened. In the evening, the fake Yukina told the rest of the girls her story, that she had come to hunt a magical monster created in an experiment by humans that has the ability to cut time, distort space, and consume dragon veins to destroy the island, and that she must destroy it before it causes the island to perish. The next day, Asaji is surprised to find that the company's service systems are down. Mogwai tells her that the island is being dismantled, and she realizes that the magic available as a building material has been consumed, and realizes that the island won't last long above sea level at this rate. When Koju and Yukina learn the truth about the dragon from Sayaka, they realize that the island is endangered by its presence, presence. Sayaka notices that Yukina is exhausted and approaches her to find that she has a fever. Koju was surprised at the way she examined her and thought he was thinking in a perverted way, so she told him that she had been friends with Yukina since childhood, unlike him, who had only met her 3 months ago, and he was surprised that the time that had passed since their first meeting was so short, as she always accompanies him all the time, which made him feel that it had passed more than that. She told him that it would end soon, as she had received an order from the organization to return to her headquarters and thought that they were tired of her helping him become stronger and become the fourth ancestor in his full form instead of watching him and eliminating him when necessary, as she caused the only spear capable of destroying him to be destroyed. Koju remembers what happened to her duplicate and thinks that if he stays with her, he may cause her death. When Sayaka suggests that she check to see if the organization wants to relieve her of Kojo's surveillance, she tells her that it will make things easier for both of them and that someone is coming to pick her up shortly. She then turned to him and told him to make sure he wakes up early even after she leaves and doesn't use the immortality curse to do rash things. Then she said goodbye to him and left quickly before she broke down in tears in front of them. Sayaka asks him what he intends to do, and when he tells her that it's best for both of them not to jeopardize her life, she slaps him and tells him that she already said she would never make the decision to leave him on her own and that inside she wants to stay with him, while he responds with ridiculous responses. Then she adds that his destiny as a fourth progenitor is to bring disaster and destruction wherever he goes, whether he wants to or not. Remembering what Yukina had told him earlier that she wanted to take his responsibilities with him, he realizes that she is right and decides to go and stop her from leaving. He rushed to the airport thinking that Yukina had made him stronger from being a useless vampire and that he should use that strength to protect others. On his way, he was surprised to see a group of airplanes attacking a magical monster on top of a tower. He tells Asadi that the island will sink in 30 minutes and asks him to escape as soon as possible. He tells her that he won't run away and leaves her to face it alone, so she decides to confess her true feelings for him when she feels that it might be her last chance. Unfortunately, the connection was cut off before she could finish speaking because all the lines connecting the island were disconnected. On the other side, the violent vibrations reached Yukina at the airport, and that's when her fake version approached her and told her that she knew about her desire to return and stay by Kojo's side. Yukina said that she was able to stay with him because she had her spear and had the ability to fight alongside him, and that she couldn't go back after losing her only weapon. Her clone told her that she didn't come to hear her stupid excuses and asked her to think about what she was going to do as Yukina and not as the Witch of the Lion King's organization. Yukina screams that she wants to stay with him, and her clone decides to give her a magical ticket back to Kojo and uses her power to give her the ability to return to him. In the meantime, Kojo summoned his demon to confront the magical dragon and managed to drop it from the top of the tower. Just when he thought he had it, the dragon came back to life and started attacking him with powerful electrical charges and almost hit him, but Estart and Natsuki intervened just in time. He summoned 2 of his demons to attack the dragon and use the situation to his advantage. Then Sayaka joined him to use her power to immobilize and stun the dragon, and despite all these attacks, he is still alive and can continue to fight against all of them. Kojo decides to use all of his power to attack the dragon and finish it off, but he is surprised by his ability to absorb his demon's power and use it against him and falls to the ground after being stunned by his own power. Dimitri then appeared in front of him, admiring the dragon's abilities and scolding him for relaxing his defense against such a powerful opponent. He then decided to take it seriously for the first time in a long time so that he could at least save Kojo. But before he could use his full strength, Unica and her clone prevented him from doing so, and Unica rushed towards the dragon to fight it herself, at which point her clone told her that the organization had been working on a special spear for 20 years, and that her old spear had broken because it couldn't withstand the magical power she had gained since she set foot on the island, not because of her lax defense. Unica finally managed to finish off the magical dragon and easily tear its body apart with her new spear, then rushed over to Kojo to hug him and scold him for acting recklessly again, then offered to drink her blood to boost his strength, and while he was drinking her blood, the dragon tried to attack them. Kojo fended it off by forming a protective barrier around them, then vowed to settle the matter now and save the island from the chaos caused by the creature. The fake Unica joined them and told Kojo that the monster had placed spiritual bonds on the dragon's veins so that it could absorb magic. Unica and her clone then combined their powers to affect the dragon's bonds, and Kojo added his power to them, then told them to target the base of its tail, and the 2 girls quickly rushed to attack the dragon with a double blow that severed its tail until Kojo summoned his demon, and the 3 of them succeeded in defeating the dragon and freeing the island from its bonds after its body was torn to shreds. As Asadi realizes announces that Koju has saved everyone and the island will not sink. They all breathe a sigh of relief. Then Yunika expresses her desire to stay with Koju and everyone else on the island and decides to ask the organization to cancel the return order. Sayaka approached them with a small piece of paper in her hand and asked her if this was the order she had received, and Yunika discovered that it was nothing more than a medical examination that all vampire handlers undergo to make sure they are not blood related. Yunika blamed Kojo for saying he'd rather she wasn't around, and they started arguing about it. Then her clone approached them and expressed her happiness at seeing them so close to each other, and used her power to go back where she came from without them knowing her name or where she came from, but Kojo noticed that she called her mom before she left.